All right, everybody, we are back. Lunch break is complete, and we are set to begin the afternoon 4 games back in the WoW division. Yes, elephant in the room, no Nigel in this game, but he is going to be coming in the very next round, going up against Jon Shreve, who is closest to him in the standings right now. Jason Lee, John's opponent in this game, is in third. Will Anderson here, as I have been all along throughout the first 3 days of play. But for this afternoon session, I am joined by my good friend, top expert for at least a decade, I don't know how long, Rafi Stern. Rafi, welcome into the broadcast. Very excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me here, Will. And I'm super excited to do commentary for such a wonderful event. Can't wait to do this game. Can't wait to see Nigel on stream again. And yeah, it's going to be a fun one.
Wow, look at this start to the game, though. John with monthly on his rack. He finds it. I wonder what he could possibly be thinking. I guess he's wondering whether to put the H or the Y on the double letter square. Oh, he's going with the M. This could be a nice choice, Rafi, for defense.
Yeah, I guess he just doesn't really want to choose the other one for whatever reason, because the O would be next to the double. So yeah,
sacrificing
slapped it down right away.
Just a 2-point sacrifice seems okay, I guess. And now, though, Jason with waftings on his rack. This is not a valid word, I don't believe. So this is a really brutal situation for him. And I feel like ing words, Rafi, are really tough to keep straight.
Yeah, ing words are very tough. We've seen it happen in some other games. Jackson did not put an S on an ing word, and that was valid in the end game. So yeah, it's very, very tricky to keep straight. Every time you have an ing word, you're gonna think, can I put an S on it? Can I not? And sometimes it just comes down to the Ori method of coming up with a story, and other times it comes down to just taking a guess and hoping you're right based on common sense.
Yeah, that Ori method we actually saw come into play when he played Toasting in an earlier game. I think it was against Nigel, in fact, and he even got to recite his rhyme to Nigel after the game, which is is that the first time Nigel Richards has ever had an ing pluralization rhyme recited to him post-game? Might have seen a world first.
I think it might have been the second time, because I actually heard that his mother would say those nursery rhymes to him when he was a child. And so not the first time he's heard those, but the first time he heard them over the board.
Nice. That explains a lot. And to Jason's credit, he has gotten off of the idea of playing waftings, which he had lined up. And I really thought he was going to go for that. And that would create a very tough challenge situation for John. John is a great player in second place here, but he's not Nigel Richards, the only player that I would fully expect to know the validity of every ing, plural or non-plural. So it's tempting, if I'm Jason, to go for it and just hope that John does not challenge it. That would be a really tough challenge for him to make. It seems like he's not considering that here, going with something safer. He has Wig set up on his rack. I'm not 100% sure where he would want to play that. Another thought that could create more word confusion, Rafi, would just be something like Wifty to the Y of monthly, which looks like it might create an S hook for Swifty, but that also is not a valid word. Oh, here we go.
Oh, is he going to do it with the S or without? Oh, he holds back, potentially wisely, potentially unwisely, depending on what John would have done. But now he gives John back a double-double. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
What a start to the game for John.
Refrains. Yeah, he's got it lined up immediately. Before you mentioned that, Rafi, I thought maybe there's a chance that John plays Waftings and Sierran, and Jason almost certainly challenges that immediately, or else he would have played the S himself. So clearly Jason would have correctly challenged the S hook there, but no need to go for it with such a big play available for Jon. And this is not the start at all that Jason needs here, really badly needing a win in this game to have any chance at all of catching Nigel Richards.
Well, what's kind of funny now is that with such a big deficit, Jason might actually try S-hooking wafting, because oftentimes the best time to get away with a phony is when it puts your opponent still up by a large enough margin such that if they challenge it and lose a turn, then they could be in jeopardy of losing the game, or of the game becoming a lot closer. But if you're still up by 100 after your opponent phonies, it can be really hard to challenge and not just, make a play and take an 130-point lead. So it could come into play later in the game depending on how the rest of it goes.
That is a great point. That would be crazy to see too. Jason eventually feel motivated or required even to try to put an S hook on the word that he correctly left it off to start the game. Game situations change, and we'll see if he winds up ever needing to go for it there. It would be really funny to see that. Looked like he was considering vote, which would open the board a little bit, just playing right on top of the R of refrains. This feels like a really tough turn, Rafi. It's hard for me to come up with a great candidate play that doesn't use my E, which I would normally love to keep.
Yeah, for sure. It would be really nice if there was some play down to the A in refrains to hit that triple, but it doesn't really look like there's any good option there. Jason was also considering playing Dove to leave the slightly more synergic TNS. But I think it's okay to play Veto or Vote. Probably Veto to put an E into space to give himself a better chance of bingoing.
Yeah, it's a good point. Vote and Veto both in the same spot here. Why not float the E just in case Jon plays somewhere else? Maybe you are happy to have it. But actually, to your previous point, Jason really trying to max out on his bingo chances with the slightly better NST. That is a better bingo leave than NDS. So maybe reasonably or correctly, deciding that he needs a bingo ASAP here, and maxing out on that chance is the way to go. And back over to Jon. He's got that Q, Rafi. We hate this Q, but there have definitely been varying approaches we've seen on stream to dump it ASAP or be patient and try to get better opportunities for it.
So the Q, I came up with this analogy a few days ago, and after the Roy Hibbert analogy, I got a little bit more excited about this one. So I feel like the Q is kind of like Boban Marjanovic, the basketball player. So for those of you who don't know, Boban is like one of the tallest players who is in the league. He got almost no playing time, but when he did, he was incredibly efficient, like more efficient than Tim Duncan, more efficient than Shaq, more efficient than almost anyone. And that's kind of like the Q. The Q, most of the time, you don't want in the game, you don't want at all. But every now and then, you can plop it down for 40 points, for 60 points, and it's incredibly efficient. So I think the Q is the Boban Marjanovic tile of Scrabble.
That is a shockingly apt analogy. I actually can't believe how well that fits. In part also because the Q and Boban, if you were to, as a basketball coach, if you were to play Boban too often, his flaws would be horribly exposed. He has no lateral movement. He is a traffic cone on defense. He just isn't fluid on the floor, but he is like an automatic bucket under the basket if you can get him in the right situation. So yeah, deploying him wisely. As we see Jason play Fatwa for 45 points, that is definitely a great play by him to dump his F and W for a lot of points. But I love that analogy, Rafi. I've not heard that one, but I'm going to use it often. But an interesting play by Jon previously of Band Dog there, leaving QE. I really like his choice to play through and not necessarily dump the Q. I mean, his only real place to do it was right on top of refrains. So I like the patience by him to block the triple, not over index on, I have to get rid of the Q right now. And he scored pretty well while he's at it. And now, of course, still with the Q to deal with, he does get a blank for his efforts. So I wonder what he should do here. You can play through with Wooer off of the W of Fatwa, or you could just exchange and try to get a bingo ASAP. Both of those feel pretty reasonable to me.
I think playing Wooer is probably the best choice here. There's 4 O's or 4 U's unseen, and with the blank in hand, it makes the Q, a lot easier to use. If he draws a U, he actually has a decent chance of hitting a bingo. And in general, the Q just won't be too hard to unload. But I wouldn't hate an exchange here either.
Yeah, we'll see. If you exchange, I guess some interesting nuances of, do you keep ER blank or do you keep an O along with that? The O maybe kind of pairs nicely. Yeah, he keeps an O. I feel like weirdly that's kind of a decent combination to play off of the F of Fatwa. I feel like the O helps you get FOR words maybe a little more often that just hit really hard on that top row, Rafi.
Yeah, normally the O is not a tile you want to keep on an exchange, but if you look at the tiles available to play through, they're pretty much all constants. The M, the H, the L, the T, the F. Every tile to play through for H is a consonant except for that A. And given that, the O actually gains a little bit of value. But I think I still would have exchanged down to ER blank, but keeping the O is probably only a tiny misstep, if that at all.
Yeah, it's a good acknowledgement by Jon of what you said, where he's really aiming for consonants here, whether it's the F or the H. So knowing that you don't have that many good vowels to work with, it could make sense here. But as you say, definitely a bit of an unusual choice, but could be warranted. And I like that he adjusted his play like that. Meanwhile, back to Jason, who finds himself in more trouble than he probably realizes. Not only is he down by over 100, but his opponent has the first blank and a Z on his rack together. Those goodies that really Jason's hoping to be able to get himself. Wonder what he's thinking about. He has PON set to the side. Maybe he's just going to play Pong, which that is kind of an agonizing play to make at this score, Rafi, scoring only 16. You really would love to either bingo or score a little better.
Yeah, this is not a spot that I would envy being in at all. Really no good scoring options. The fishes aren't even that good either. Leaving ENLS is a good bingo leave, but it's not a great bingo leave. And again, with mostly consonants to play through, it could be a little bit tricky to hit. But yeah, I think Pong looks like a good option here. I don't really see much better. So I wouldn't hate doing that.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes that's how Scrabble works. Sometimes you got 4 or 5 plays, all of which feel appealing for different reasons. And then sometimes you have no play that feels appealing for any reason, but you have to do something to advance the game. And certainly Jason's going to play a word. There's no need to exchange. It's just that the words that you're going to put on the board here are kind of uninspiring. So Loon maybe is now on his radar, something up here. Maybe the idea behind that is it obstructs a little bit less of the future of the board. You might want to keep this area open in case you draw a bingo from the M or from the H. Those are going to be great bingos for you to hit because they throw so much of the board back open. So Jason may be saying, well, Pong is a decent play, but if I happen to draw a bingo from the M, it's just what I need to open things up again. But meanwhile, Rafi, Jon is potentially sitting poised like a cobra, ready to strike with an absolute gigantic blow. Some of you in the chat have seen Frozenly, if he sees it, is going to be insane for him and almost put the game out of reach immediately.
Yeah, that would be a monster play. And I think there's a very good chance that Jon will see and play it very quickly. He it looks like he enjoys alphabetizing his rack as many top players do. Whereas some players will kind of telegraph what they're going to play ahead of time by arranging it in the order of the bingo. But he's sitting there just waiting to see what Jason does, and I would not be surprised if he puts down Frozenly within 5 or 10 seconds.
Yeah, no need to wait whatsoever if you see it. So we're about to find out. Jason with a good long think, and I do feel like it's very common to, oh, look at that. Look how quick. Cobra-like reflexes from Jon Shreve as he is about to hit insanely hard with this play. And people in the chat, Rafi, are speculating, could this possibly justify a challenge from Jason here, as he really badly needs this word to not be good if he's going to have any chance at all to win this game? Yeah.
If I was in this spot, I would definitely consider challenging for sure. Unless I was 99% sure or more, it's just you lose the game. You lose the game if it's a word, and you have a fighting chance if it isn't. So, Frozenly, you know, probably a word, but it sounds a little bit weird. And, you know, any play over 100 points, you're not sure of at this stage. You just have to challenge.
Yep. Totally sensible decision, unless you are somehow absolutely 100% sure. You really need to be as sure as you could possibly get in any word to not challenge this one, given not just the game scenario, but also the tournament scenario, where if you're going for the win here, Jason basically needs to win this game and continue to win many more games, including some against Nigel Richards, if you're going to have a shot at this thing. So makes sense to challenge. Tough outcome for him and tough game, as it's back over to Jon. Not the best tiles for him, but what a time to draw some weak tiles when you're up by 219 points, Rafi.
And what's going to happen now in the game is that Jon actually might want to start thinking about trying to go for a lot of spread, because he's in second place. He's down by 3 games, but he's down by around 1,200 spread. And if he wants to catch Nigel, he's either going to have to pass him in games or pass him in spread. And it might be easier to pass him in spread. So if he can somehow pull off a 300 or 400 point win there, that'll go a long way toward cutting the spread he desperately needs.
It's a very good point. Don't necessarily see that on this particular move he has a play that allows him to run the score up any more or less. In fact, the weird thing is that one of his natural plays here to sort of remove the duplicated letters from his rack might be beat or something like that. That's how poor Jon's post bingo draw was. And this would give a bingo back to Jason. So the T's out in space, giving back petunias, or I suppose supinate, depending on where they land on the board. I'm assuming that without any really good offensive option, Jon is probably going to try not to open the board very much. But it feels like several of his plays might give Jason a bingo response.
Yeah, another option that he might play is a motet or mott, and both of those throw T's into space as well. It's hard to find a good scoring play that doesn't throw a T into space. So he might end up giving Jason a little bit of a boon here.
Yeah. So plenty of time for Jon, which makes sense given that he's hit 3 bingos to start, which he's found pretty much instantaneously in each case. He's only had 5 turns in the game. 3 of them were bingos. 1 was an exchange of the cue, and the other was Bandog holding the cue. So I feel like he is definitely ahead of schedule. And there we go. Not wanting to open anything new back to Jason. B at the top of the board. Seems reasonable, Rafi. The board is pretty tough to bingo or score on right now, and that play by Jon does nothing to change that.
Yeah, I like that decision a lot. He doesn't have any reason to play the other plays we were talking about. And so keeping it closed and getting rid of the triplicate tile is a great play. And he's now drawn into another bingo.
Yeah.
Although I don't think it plays.
Yeah, might not play. Jason playing Pa underneath the Z, scoring well with the P for a good number of points. Funny because had he played the other play he seemed to be considering of lineup right here, opening the board a little more aggressively, we would see Jon bingo again. Not the straightest line I've ever drawn. I can improve on that. I actually can improve on this on both counts with my, oh no, he spun the board. But lineup here, yes, thwarted indeed, would be met with outrate. There we go. An arrow, a real honest to goodness arrow. So no bingo opportunity for Jon. He's going to be able to balance his rack or continue to play the waiting game and not open much back. He could play outie in this spot. Looks kind of nice, Rafi, to score decently on double the T's and not open anything new.
That's a pretty play, and I like it a lot. ART is a good leave. With all one pointers, you're kind of stuck not really being able to score a lot of points easily, and you're mostly either fishing for a bingo or trying to find a good overlap. And outie is the best way to score points, and I think you should take it.
Yeah, there are definitely other options. Just out in a different game scenario, something like out would be very tempting, holding a really nice bingo leave. If you just take the rest, you have the leave of rate, setting up your A as a hook right here in case you draw a bingo with A in early position. That would definitely be a solid play in many game scenarios, but not when you're up by 200 points and just want to keep things on lockdown heading into the second half of this game. So yeah, we'll see what Jon elects to do. Sometimes it's tough, Rafi, when you go up by 200-ish or a really, really big score to continue to sort of grind and make really good reasoned decisions, because you kind of take your foot off the gas a little bit, which is only natural given the sort of marathon nature of these Scrabble tournaments.
Yeah, especially when you have a tough turn like this where you don't really have any obvious options, you don't have any good scoring options. It's kind of hard to decide what to do, because you know you're going to win the game, but you need to try to win by as much as you can, and remaining focused and not just speeding your way to the end of the game. It can be really difficult.
So we'll see. Looks like Jon now setting up EAU. This would be if he plays this here, I suppose. I guess you could also play it on top of, yeah, there we go. So playing it on top of the letters in monthly seems to block a little bit. I think this does maybe slightly reduce Jon's odds of getting yet another bingo with that ORTT leave, but it continues the theme of not opening much back to Jason. So I don't hate it on that basis.
And Jason lays down Unai, takes it back. He was looking to set up an S hook really quickly, but then changed his mind. Are you laughing because of what Jon drew?
Yeah, a little bit. So another good draw for Jon. With that, again, I mentioned that the leave is not great, but I guess it doesn't look like Jon has anything here, or does he now? Hold on. Let me just make sure that I'm caught up. Unai is the play for Jason. I got to give him his points. 10 points, all of 10 points. If you're Jon and you're seeing Jason score 10 points on a move when he desperately, needs bingos, you're probably feeling like, are you feeling only good, or do you feel any pity for your opponent in this situation, Rafi?
No pity, no pity. Run up to score as much as you can. Maybe feel pity if it's the final game of the tournament and they're trying to win too. But at this stage, you gotta keep pedal to the metal. You can't have pity until it's over.
Fair enough. Makes a lot of sense. We are here to compete after all. So yeah, have to, I mean, the on the human level, it's okay to feel those things, especially if your opponent is a friend. And I do feel like, in general, a lot of us at the high level in, like, I'm sure that a lot of the games between players in both the WoW and Collins divisions are between people who are very friendly. But when the game is in progress, it's about trying to win the game. And if you're winning by a lot, try to win by even more. So that's just what we're here to do. But that doesn't have to mean that you are totally heartless, no empathy for your opponent. But yeah, Jon is totally within his right to try to run up the score as best he can.
I think a feeling that a lot of players might have instead of pity is feeling a bit sheepish. Just, you just kind of feel a little bit awkward that you're winning by so much against a friend or against anyone. And, everyone's battling and everyone wants the opportunity to win. And when you just, blow someone out of the water, they don't even have a chance based on the tiles. It can feel a little bit weird for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So once again, back to Jason. Good bingo tiles, but no bingo available for him. So he is now 8 turns into the game and has not been able to draw a bingo. The board has not been very good, but also Jon's been able to get a whole bunch. So it just has not been there. The timing has not been what Jason needed in this game. He plays Jeed alongside Wafting underneath Monthly. That scores about as much as he can get. Undoubles his eyes. There are a bunch of E's left to draw. This seems like a solid play again by Jason.
This is a part in the game where it can be very hard to focus when you absolutely need to win the game. You know that you can't really win the game. There's almost nothing that you can do at this point to win, but you have to keep fighting. And Jason's doing a good job of keeping his composure and trying to do his best to make something happen.
Yeah, keeping the S there with his previous play. Elds is a word, so if he were to have drawn something starting with S, sackier is not a valid word, unfortunately, so it's not going to work out for him. Not sure if he has anything anywhere else. It's not that I see right now, but really this board is starting to become deader and deader. And if I'm Jon, I feel like a reasonable idea, maybe this doesn't actually help you that much, but I would be tempted to play Ryu right here. It blocks the M. Yes, it does give the R back, but at least if you force Jason to bingo off of the R, a lot of the time you're going to get counterplay along the triple back, and it kind of doesn't open the board as effectively as a bingo from the M would do. Plus, it undoubles your 2 R's and gets rid of your Y and U. So that seems reasonable, but you could use those same letters to play Ruby and just expose nothing at all on the board, continue to play inside, and Jon could send an empathetic message to Jason, Rafi.
He might be sending it to everyone who's watching, just saying, "Yeah, I'm sorry for whomping you," but yeah, now it looks like he's switching to potentially playing Murray off that M, which would be another solid play. And then another play that is an interesting kind of in-between play. It doesn't really get rid of 2 of the worst tiles on his rack with people look at R and U, but he could play Oyer parallel to B, making YEW for a decent score without opening up another spot on the board.
Yeah, all reasonable. I think Murray is even reasonable, despite the fact that, yeah, it does open this very nice double-double lane, which I feel like if Jon had 100 fewer points, you definitely wouldn't want to do that, but he's up by enough that it almost doesn't even matter if Jason has a really big play across those 2 doubles. He's going to be up by enough, and there we go. He draws the second blank. Maybe he's going to be happy that he opened that R. I can at least see heroizes with a blank Z. Maybe there's something even better that hits both double word scores. But unless Jason finds a way to block that R, Jon could be bingoing again in this game, Rafi.
Yep. Fire hose is another option there. I don't see any double doubles yet, but it's gonna be it's gonna be pretty tough for Jason when he sees another bingo come down in a turn or two, to be down by 250 or 300 points. But sometimes it's just your tournament, and Jon is having the tournament of his life right now.
Yeah, he is doing amazingly well in a difficult field. Right now, he is ahead of defending champion Jackson Smylie, one of the top players in North America, if not ranked at the top right now, and Joey Krafchick. Jason Lee, his current opponent. There's only one fly in the ointment for Jon Shreve, and it is a certain bike-loving individual from New Zealand who has come to visit us again. Nigel with a 21-3 record, and only because he lost 2 of his 3 games this morning. And there we go. Just the K fished off. Jason probably feeling frustrated that this is what it's taken for him to get a good bingo leave. But that's going to leave the R open. There were some plays, Rafi, that might have blocked it, such as KIR into the first R of Murray. That would have been a little more difficult for Jon to figure out a way to bingo. But I do think he's going to see either heroizes or the word you pointed out, fire hose.
And the silver lining here for Jason is that he will finally bingo on his next turn. But it'll be too little too late, but it's always nice to get that bingo down even when it's in a losing effort. And it looks like Jon has set up heroizes on his rack.
Or heroines.
Oh, yeah, that is very possible. He could do the old fake out and call the blanket Z out loud and circle the N, really throw his opponent off. But that would be pretty unethical. But anytime the blank can be multiple tiles, there's always the chance that someone misdesignates it.
Yeah, so we do have a view of that camera. I'm trying to figure out where I actually put that overhead camera view to figure out what this is. I guess all things being equal, if you were aware of both of those words, you would probably designate this as a Z to create fewer overlaps for your opponent. Only the A going under that in this lexicon. But yeah, Jason is getting a bingo, folks. Ironically, if he had not drawn into a Trezic, which he's surely going to see and play alongside the K, his best play, Rafi, would be try monthly.
Wow.
For 54. Wow. Which imagine if that actually, cool. If that actually mattered, that would be incredibly stylish to get that down in a close game.
That would be phenomenal to see. And unfortunately, he has the last T, so after he bingos, it won't even be in play anymore as an option. But yeah, anytime someone bingos on the opening turn, if you know the extensions to hit the triple, those can often be worth 40 or 50 points and are very useful to know.
Yeah, for sure. All right, getting the overhead camera here. It does appear that second blank is the Z. So heroizes is the play by Jon. So that is, again, even with that nice lead that Jon has, he is making the correct little nuanced decisions. And back over to him. And it's just that type of game for Jon. He drew the X after his bingo. And of course, Jason, I guess he would be unhappy to see Jason get a bingo down and cut into his margin, but he's going to get a nice big X play in response that he probably wouldn't have had. I guess the best he could have done would be to play something here. He's going to get 16 more points by playing it alongside a Trezic. That's just how it goes sometimes. Sometimes it's your game.
Yep. When it rains, it pours, and it is pouring very, very hard on the head of Jason Lee right now.
Indeed. So a lot is going to be riding on the result of Nigel Richards' next game. So as you guys probably know, he is playing Annette Oberstad right now. We'll try to figure out what the result of that game is. The entire rest of the WoW playing field would cheer if Nigel lost that game. It would knot things up even more so. And it would amazingly bring Jon Shreve, after he's going to get this win in this game, he'd be within 2 games of Nigel with 6 to go. So definitely very possible to reel him in from there. As amazing as Nigel's result has been so far, he is not home free yet. And EX is the play by Jon. I wonder if he has something planned for his J here, Rafi.
Yeah, that was interesting. He was clearly deciding between playing the E or the O there. And one thing to note is that the only 2-letter word with the J is J-O. So he might be holding on to the O in case there's a good spot to dump it later. It just pairs better with the J than the E does. So it's possible that was part of his consideration.
I think,
but there might be some other reason.
Yeah.
He was looking for Ejido.
Yeah, it's these Ds that he wanted. Both of the Ds on Jason's rack, but had Jon drawn one, he would get a giant play, Ejido here. You can't play this if you use your O in this spot and keep the E. So very savvy choice, I would say, by Jon. Great recognition, actually, on his part in a game where he is up by way more than he needs to be to give that type of careful effort. So I'm pretty impressed that he came up with that nuance here.
That was incredible. That was a very, very solid play, and one that you can definitely miss in a game where you're up by so much and you can just autopilot your way to the win. So really, really props to him on playing the E instead of the O there.
Yeah, that is nice. Question from Heidi Robertson, my commentator from the first session. How stupid would it have been to play tri-monthly and go for a bingo next turn? And I think it is very much worth considering if you're Jason to get a 50-point play, leaving good bingo tiles. But I do think the score difference between those 2 plays is enough that you would just take your bingo and know that if you play tri-monthly, your odds of getting a similarly high scoring play as a Treesic next turn are pretty slim, but definitely worth a thought. And meanwhile, Jason looks like he's thinking about playing Evade. I think that's perfectly reasonable from him here. I guess if he's looking into this pool, Rafi, he might see the possibility of Equip going down from this E. That does seem like it's worth addressing, even if you... Oh, he's going to play Demi. Okay. Wonder what he's thinking about. That seems like he has a specific
he's thinking
goal.
About changing his mind.
Yeah. And he's changing to Emid. But I wonder why not just play Evade, which it seems like he's clearly seen. Does he have some plan for the V that I'm not detecting?
My best guess here would be that he is trying to avoid emptying the bag. With so much clunk in there, if he draws 1 fewer tile, then he has fewer chances to draw the Q. In addition, by not emptying the bag, it just makes Jon's turn a little bit trickier. Anytime the bag is empty and you have perfect information, then you can play a perfect game a lot of the time. But anytime there's 1 tile in the bag, it can be very hard to figure out the correct play because there's 8 potential options of what you could draw.
That makes sense. So just not wanting to make Jon's next move any easier for him. That certainly makes some sense to me. So Jon looking into a pool of some clunky letters, the C, the P, and the V, all sort of higher point tiles, nothing crazy. But I certainly don't feel like, first of all, the board doesn't have a lot of opportunities to even bingo or score. And yeah, secondly, I just think there's no real threat on the board that Jon has to block necessarily. So he can do almost whatever he wants. I would think that, he is going to play Sook. I was literally about to say the only thing I'd be thinking about it before playing Sook is that Jason could have an S, but I guess if he doesn't have a bingo, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, and on a board that the Q just doesn't play much at all, scoring 22 for it and not getting stuck with it is pretty important. And so I think he looked at the pool and saw that there were no bingos available and decided, okay, I'm going to just dump my Q, and so I have a chance to not get stuck with it later, given that the J is also very hard to play on this board.
Makes a lot of sense. So I'm curious how much energy Jason is going to spend on this end game, especially given the lopsided result in this game. And I guess if I'm looking at this from Jason's perspective, probably I'm thinking about the J and where can Jon play it. Certainly there is a simple place to just play Joe right here, but a much better place to play it might be emoji through the EM already on the board. That seems like a spot that might represent by far the highest scoring play that Jon can make with the J. So either I would like to try to block that, or I would try to leave tiles that force, if Jon is going to play this I would try to keep something that hits through the eye very hard to either disincentivize him from playing that word or be ready to strike when he does. I guess that's how I'd be thinking about this end game. How about you?
Yeah, it can be so hard. At this point, Jason might just want the game to be over and to spend more energy in a game that he actually can win. So in this position, I might be resigned to just trying to get through it and score a decent amount of points. But yeah, if there is a way to block emoji or to benefit from the eye in that triple lane, it would be probably best to do so, especially if there's a way to do it with an out and two.
Right. That's the tough part, just given how many clunky high pointers Jason has. Computer Engine wanting Jason to play help here, potentially to block emoji, but also save. Maybe if you can't go out, at least you save Vax and Sooks on a subsequent turn, which scores very well. It's possible that once you block emoji, or even if you allow emoji, Jon, with his 3 eyes, he might not be able to go out in 2 in this end game. So if you're Jason, there may be no great rush to make sure you can end the game in only 2 turns. You might actually be able to get 3 turns while you're at it. He's going to go ahead and play Perv up high. And I guess we'll see what this means for Jon. Is he has OG set up, Rafi. Pretty sure he sees it.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to plop down emoji. But that was a nice play too by Jason, because he's setting himself up for Scald to go out. So he did find an out and 2 with a tough rack.
Nice.
Maybe not the best sequence, but pretty close to it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Sooks and Scald will be an outplay for him. Technically speaking, looking at Jon's rack of GII, you may actually do slightly better to not go out with Scald right now. But as you said, I think anyone could sympathize with Jason to just get done with this game, spend the minimum amount of mental energy on this, move on to the next one, where, as you said, maybe he will have slightly higher winning chances from the jump than your opponent bingoing with monthly and then refrains immediately.
Yeah, tough loss for Jason. Very, very nice win by Jon. Well played game by both of them for sure. Can't really point to anything that was a big mistake. Yeah, they played great, and it just was unfortunate that it was a blowout.
And the final, which sorry to be slightly slow on the end game there, but the final score 546 for Jon Shreve to 329 for Jason. Maybe we'll cut to overhead mic and see what the players have to say. All right. Well, looks like not a lot of discussion happening here. Maybe we'll give him another minute.
Thanks.
Jason wishing Jon good luck. Yeah, I think not too much to talk about with this game, as both players probably realized, Rafi. So maybe we'll throw it back up to us here. And yeah, tough one for Jason. It's always frustrating when you have a sort of a must win game for yourself, and the tiles just completely do not cooperate from the first moment of the game.
Yeah, that's very rough. And I wonder if Jason is thinking about whether he should have tried waftings or not, because that was really the only way that he would have had a chance in this game. But I think there's a good chance that Jon would have challenged it off. He has proven that his word knowledge is pretty strong. And I don't think he's afraid to challenge if he thinks the word is not good. So that might have changed the game, but it also might have made him lose by more.
Yeah, for sure. Could get out of hand even faster. It's always tough, especially in the North American divisions where the challenge rule is the double challenge, where there's always a lost turn at stake. You're always thinking about, could I have tried something? Certainly not against, if you're up against a really strong opponent, the odds of those type of bluffs actually working start to get pretty low. But if you're against somebody where you don't really know for sure what their word knowledge is, or if you're against somebody that is not as incredibly experienced as most of the top players we've been watching, as experienced as they are, it's always on the table to go for it and try to play a word that either you know to not be good, or that you're not 100% sure and you're just going to roll the dice that maybe it is. It's easy to look back at those moments and say, what if? But yeah, it does. I do agree. It seems like Jon was very in control there, probably challenges, and the same result or something close to it would result there. So all right, so what we're going to do now with that game finishing up is we are going to see Jon Shreve versus Nigel Richards. By the time we come back with that game, we are probably going to know what happened in Nigel's last game. If Annette Oberstad was able to defeat Nigel, things are going to get very tight at the top between Jon Shreve and Nigel Richards. And that sets us up for a really, really exciting rest of the day, Rafi.
Yeah, we'll probably end up having to see some repeats between Jon Shreve and Nigel, because at this point, Jon is probably the only player who can realistically catch him. He's going to be either 2 or 3 games behind, and Jason at this point is a minimum of 5 games behind. So we'll have to see how the standings shake out, but it looks like it could come down to Jon as the last chance to catch Nigel.
North America's last hope, humanity's last hope. That's not fair to say. Nigel is a human being just like the rest of us, even though his Scrabble ability sometimes makes us wonder. But yeah, that's going to be exciting. So what we're going to do now is take a quick break. And when Jon Shreve and Nigel Richards are ready, we're going to bring that game, round 26, to you ASAP from the 2025 World Cup.
Oh,
All right,
I'm ready.
folks.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we're good. We got our players here. Jon and Nigel seated. They are ready to rock. I think they've been waiting for me to get back. I am very sorry that we had to delay them in any way, shape, or form, because this is going to be epic, as once again, as I was for the previous game and will be for possibly the next two. It all depends on Nigel. Is Rafi Stern? Rafi, I'm very excited for this. And not the start that Jon wants. This is a far cry from monthly as an opening rack.
Yeah, I think he'll probably quickly exchange. This is very interesting. He's clearly RE blank leave from previous game, but again, it's very, very close whether to keep the A or not here. But I feel like if someone's going to exchange very, very yes, so interesting that his.
So yeah, trying not to speak over Rafi here, but
and it looks like Nigel has. Looks like that'll probably be what he chooses to play. He could also play Bison as another.
So yeah, Fizz. I think Rafi going into Fizz versus Fison. I think it actually would have made a relatively big difference to put the C on the board or not. That would have given Jon bingos that perhaps he does not have. So playing fewer tiles and a more defensive opening play, definitely helping Nigel. Rafi, you had a little lag there, so hopefully we stick with you. But if it's over with, then we should be good to go. Oh, okay. So we're going to have Rafi exit our command center and rejoin and hope that that improves his audio, as I'm not able to hear him at this time. But he'll be back in just a second as we're over to Jon, whose tiles look very good with the exception of maybe the U. If you replace that with almost anything else, you would likely be seeing a bingo here. But instead, Jon with a very tricky decision on his hands. Do you play? What do you play if you're Jon? You could just play the O and the U right here, but that would be a little bit scary to do. Could you play auto right here? That would use up more letters, but open a huge scoring spot back to Nigel that maybe you're uncomfortable with. As we welcome Rafi back. Rafi, let's give a check on how your audio is here.
Testing. Am I
It
good?
sounds a little different than it did before, but I think we're okay. And a very defensive choice here by Jon of just Eta alongside Fizz, scoring 25 points at a cost to his leave a little bit. I feel like there is some logic to this, Rafi, given that not a lot of the other plays available seemed really good from a defensive standpoint.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool and interesting choice. I think a slight improvement on that type of play would have been to just play Ta and keep the E. The E really improves the chances of bingoing. But yeah, Eta is definitely a fine choice and is very stylistic depending on what Jon's goals are. And maybe against Nigel, he really wants to have a very closed board.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. That is definitely something that a lot of people going up against Nigel, they have that attitude, and maybe for good reason, that if I can just keep the board a little bit tighter, he's not going to be able to use his incredible, basically flawless word knowledge to run away with a game. The problem with that is he's also very good at operating on tight boards as well. So you have to be careful what you wish for. There really is no silver bullet necessarily in terms of a strategy that's just going to work wonders against Nigel. He's pretty comfortable in most situations that have anything to do with Scrabble, Rafi.
Yeah, he's kind of like a hybrid between David play the wide open boards like a boss, and he can play not not really any board type that he the close. Yeah, but definitely I can understand why some people would be more inclined to try to play a closed board against. You don't know all the words.
Yeah. Interesting play there by John as we'll continue to work on Rafi's audio. I think it's close to good. He just plays love, holding the two S's. That feels really sensible to me from John's perspective, I would say. Yeah, I guess you could tack on the other one to undouble it. But the nice thing about this is that with the two S's in hand, if you do draw a bingo, it's very likely to play with feels, and you're not giving Nigel any unnecessary information. If John had tacked on one of his two S's here, that tells Nigel a lot. Of course, we know that he has um, a bingo, and he's going to play one of his, many different options of bingo here as I get the score updated with John's 13 points. Looks like he's considering playing Gantt line through this end for the maximum score. Maybe Nigel will consider sacrificing some points with the more normal word of latening, but he is going. Oh, look at this. Very weird choice, Rafi, by Nigel.
Wow.
Is what could be. So he's clearly doing this to not open the triple lane, potentially, reasoning that an S hook here is nowhere near as devastating as if you slid this word over and ended with the E in the triple lane. Nigel could lose the game, or not lose the game, but lose his advantage in the game nearly immediately. But this is a really surprising move to me.
I agree. I'm very surprised that he did any huge drawback of putting a right here on the double words. Would have played the triple lane. I probably that I don't understand. Maybe his reasoning is that he would rather take out the feels hook and make it harder to bingo, and he's okay with the prospect of John plays. He played 8 playing, and because if you, and then love, and pretty much no way that he has a high when he has scoring tile. So if he does have scoring tile to be able to hit that spot big, have the option of lanes, and he was okay with giving up a 40 or 50 point play right in that spot. On kill.
Yeah, I think so hearing you guys in the chat, it's frustrating because we know a lot of great insight, I should say, coming through from Rafi, but we will try to fix the audio issue. Rafi's point there was that this could be a really cool acknowledgement of playing Gant line here, actually blocking the S hook here. Yes, you do give back a nice scoring play to Jon, but you potentially give back fewer bingos by placing it where Nigel did. In any case, nice play by Jon of devs using one of his 2 S's, and Nigel immediately responding with paddle through the E. Looked like he had a few too many vowels there, and he's balanced his leave quite nicely by playing that. Only issue, I suppose, is that the S on Nigel's rack doesn't really have a natural home anymore on this board for words ending in an S. So over to Jon. And I feel like potentially the best option for Jon here would be updos. And if you're wondering why could that possibly be a word, it's because I believe it refers to a hairdo. The updo, you put your hair up. Not something that I can do, especially now that I've hit 40 years of age. And yeah, he spots it. Very nice. 33 points, leaving NOS. But look at that. Nigel already had bandages set up on his rack through this A. He will now have the choice of whether he wants to play bondages through the O. So spoiled for choice is Nigel, already up by a solid number. And Dogbane's even better, in fact. So Dogbane's slotting the B right here is going to score 86 compared to 82 for bondages in the same spot, and 74 to bandages across the board. And of course, as you can see, Nigel getting set to play his 86 pointer here just in the nick of time. Jon drawing a blank that's going to potentially allow him to keep pace in this game when it seemed like Nigel was about to go up by a very commanding margin. Jon's going to be able to answer with something, I believe, to keep pace here. What that is, not 100% sure yet. Maybe I'm just assuming, but I guess at the minimum, he's going to have connotes through the E of Dogbane's on the board, which I do expect Jon to see. He might take a little bit of time to do so, because you really would love, if you're Jon here, you're now trailing by over 100 points in a game you really need to try to win. I would love, if I'm Jon Shreve, to play a bingo here across 2 double word scores, and if at all possible. No such play exists. Trying to get that score updated. There we go. So this is a bit of a trap in terms of how much time Jon might spend here trying to find a good play. Is he going to try to find a bingo ending in P? Non-stops is a valid word. It just does not extend far enough across the triple. So yeah, connotes maybe the best that Jon can do, although that does put a C out in space, which maybe he will not want to do. Tough turn for sure. I think we have Rafi back. How would you approach this turn, Rafi? If you see connotes available as a bingo for Jon, you'd probably assume there's got to be something better than that.
Yeah, I would look to the P, but it's very hard to end an 8-letter word in P. So I don't think that I would look there very long. I would want to look off that A and Gant lines as well. Looking for a double starting with A. Like, you almost have Arnatos, but not quite. So I would probably spend a minute or two looking for something better here. Maybe even a disconnected 9 through the A and the E up top on a row 2. But yeah, would probably spend a couple minutes looking for something better and then be resigned to play the kind of crappy bingo.
Yeah, there are so many words that look like Arnato that I'm almost a little bit concerned that is it possible that John would ever try this? Anatos with two N's, two O's, and two T's. This is one of the few invalid combinations of many, many variations of that word, which I think it has to do with a dye of some sort, if or coloration. I could be totally off on that, but it would be tempting to try that just because, as I say, a lot of similar words. But yeah, against Nigel, you got to be sure to lay whatever you are thinking of playing on the board.
Yep. John is doing his due diligence to look for something better. The good thing about connotes is it doesn't put a vowel right below that double letter score. So it doesn't give back a huge comeback play, at least, but it is not very good for keeping the board open for a bit of a comeback. The good news is he's not going to be down by an insurmountable amount. So there is a chance for him to open it up later, and there's still a good amount of room in the top part of the board. Ooh.
This is a cool choice. I was wondering maybe this is the play for long-term openness rather than putting the C out in space, which at least in the short term is very defensive, not allowing any hooking plays. Of course, I guess if I'm John, and he seemed to see connotes there for the record as he plays nanobots, very nicely spotted by him, only 2 fewer points than connotes. The only thing I would say about placing the C here is if you do find a way to productively play through the C, all of a sudden you are creating more space on the board, potentially multiple lanes that are scary for Nigel to deal with. But I have no real quibble with nanobots. And for his trouble, John is rewarded with the second blank, Rafi. So this is definitely not over just yet. Not 100% sure. I'm looking around to see what is he going to do with this. That E of dog bane. There we go. Trot line to the E of dog bane. There you go. John should see that after some thought. So Nigel is not going to block it. Seems like he's likely to play je right there unless he pivots to Murex, which would block it. Wow. Oh, it's still you get trot lines.
That is pretty funny. And I think that John will probably see trot lines. Looking into the ES is very natural to look for with this rack. Oftentimes it can be very hard to find nines, but nines that are an 8 with an S at the end are not that hard to find. It's basically just finding the 8. So I feel pretty confident that John will be able to see trot lines here.
Yeah, he could really use it here. This is not a good set of tiles if you are not able to find a bingo. There is one available, and it is far from foolproof either, because when you look at how it actually would fit on the board right here, it definitely gives plenty back to Nigel. In fact, there is a chance that he'll be able to play very productively through this O, although I don't know, maybe he's not sure. Usually he gives us that foreshadowing of what he would like to play here, and I'm not 100% sure yet what he has planned, but yeah, trot lines, 62 points, definitely a must, but John is going to need even more help from the bag here. He's already down by quite a lot. 62 is only going to cut a little bit into this nearly 100-point deficit, and then Nigel is going to score well. That play of Murex was really cool, Rafi, blocking a lot of the open tiles, the S and E of Dogbanes, and setting up his J. Maybe that's what he has. He's just thinking about playing JO in that spot. That is really cool. Not sure I saw that until a moment ago.
Yeah, that was fantastic recognition of just a combination of setting up the J, blocking 4 bingo lanes, and unduplicating his R's. So that is vintage Nigel right there. Very, very, very nice recognition of the value of his tiles and the value of closing the board.
Looks like Jon might be getting set to play intro, which would be a bit of a missed opportunity. Although, again, that would not be the worst. This isn't the worst time to miss a bingo, in my opinion. When your best scoring bingo scores only 62 and opens a triple really usefully back to Nigel. That being said, I really do think he's going to want to take those extra 44 points compared to intro if he were to see it. Still has some time to do so, hasn't committed to this play, but certainly the INTR set aside on the rack, Rafi, makes me think maybe we're going to see that 9-letter word get missed.
Yeah, the biggest downside with intro is that Nigel, not always, but sometimes will play through that N, and then you don't really have anywhere good to bingo. So yeah, you might have another chance with that blank, but this is a pretty closed board. There's not a lot of options, and finding trot lines immediately here would be a really, really huge help to Jon. I'm also wondering if he's looking for 9s through that A and E up top. The A and E go really well with his tiles, and there could be a 9 there some of the time with very, very similar tiles, but in this case there wasn't.
Yeah, great point. With all those consonants on Jon's rack, the 2 vowels at the top of the board would have been very appealing to look through. But no dice. There was nothing there. Only to the ES at the base of the board was there actually a valid bingo to play, and Nigel cashing in that J. There was great upside too. If Nigel drew a little bit better, you could easily see a very, very big play, as long as you just need to get just the right consonant right here in this square. And if you did, Nigel could be scoring even way more points than this by overlapping all the way down Murex. Instead, he will settle for Joe for 41, running his lead up pretty high. And back to Jon, who's drawn the WH combination. I saw the bingo of whiptail through the eye of intro right away, but maybe even more so than last time. Might not be time to play that if he can come up with some other decent scoring play that keeps the blank here, Rafi. I just feel like 64 points. He's going to want to get more than that for his bingo if possible.
The one thing he does not want to do here is see whiptail and then be confused as to whether it's whiptail or tail whip and try tail whip to that P. That would be a ton of points, but that would be no points against Nigel.
Tail whip. Tail whip is a Pokemon move, if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
And in this situation, it would not be very effective.
Yeah, here, because the bingo is so few and because tail whip is not a word, it actually would be considerably better to not bingo here. A good rule of thumb for keeping the blank and foregoing a bingo is somewhere around 25 or 30 points. And it varies depending on what your remaining tiles are and how many bingo lanes are open. And here he'd have to be sacrificing just 26 to retain IT blank. He plays wheel, WHEAL, through that E in devs.
Yeah, this feels pretty good. Scoring nicely. At the same time, certainly if I'm Jon with my great WH combination, I would love to have a bingo to this S, but I just don't quite have enough vowels to do that. Jon's going to play Haw, which I think, again, this is probably better than Whiptail, even if he were to see it, just to score 30 and keep the dream alive for maybe with enough vowels you can hit as the board spins on me again. You could hit that S of updos, or maybe if you get really lucky, could you hit the X if you get something really, really lucky? those are the type of plays that Jon needs, as Nigel makes another just beautiful overlapping play of Irk right there. The K slotting in beautifully, scoring a ton of points.
He played Irk very fast here, and I'm a little bit surprised that he didn't consider playing Merc and Hawk for longer than 5 seconds, just because it blocks a lot of bingo lanes. Like Irk is the play he was thinking of ahead of time, but I wouldn't be opposed to playing Merc there, hooking the K on Hawk. It's probably a little closer than you might think.
Yeah, so this is the play that Rafi referring to here, which definitely does a lot of work defensively, cutting off some of the bingos that could play down from either the N or T, and certainly cutting off all of the action that you could get hooking Haw. And here we go. Lattices, one of the two 77-point moves for Jon, just in the nick of time. So all of a sudden, hold on. I think I missed. Oh, yeah, I missed Nigel's play. So it's not that close, in fact. So Irk is going to score very well. And now Lattices is going to come down for Jon. And it gets him to within 50. Sorry about that, everybody. This is still a commanding position, I would say, for Nigel, given that he's up 50 plus whatever he's about to score. And I think we're about to maybe see crewmen find its way onto the rack. This is kind of a word that has a place in Scrabble history, Rafi, not in a video I've made, but do you know what I'm talking about when I say that?
No, I don't. Please enlighten me.
Yeah, this was played in a game, I think at a world championship, where Sami Okasaga inverted the W and M and played Kremwen instead of crewmen, but it was not detected by his opponent and it stayed on the board. So let's see if Nigel plays the right spelling. Yep, there we go. First the W, then the M. This looks fantastic. 40 points. Nigel going up 90 and blocking a whole swath of the board in the process. That's definitely seems great to me.
Very, very good play by Nigel. And Jon is probably thinking how wonderful it would be if that L were an E instead. So he could play Theo Urea off of that T in intro. He's very, very close to a bingo here. And he may be close to other stuff as well. But yeah, Jon is in a rough spot here for sure. He might need to do something a little bit crazy to have a chance to come back.
Yeah, it's just tough because one of the things that you can do that fall into the category of quote unquote a little bit crazy would be to throw open a triple lane somewhat recklessly and hope that Nigel just does not have any good letters to address it. That would work a lot better if there was already an existing opening on the board that was that threatening. Unfortunately for Jon, it's really only this part of the board that you could even open in a super threatening manner right now. And if you did that, that would immediately become a red alert spot that Nigel would have every incentive to deal with immediately. So because of that, it certainly feels like this is a tough situation for Jon here. Really mostly very accurate decisions on his part. I even feel like intro versus trot line was not particularly a huge mistake. It just seems like Nigel has had the tempo, and of course that beautiful play of Murex really swung things heavily in his favor, as we're going to just see OH no be played there. Doesn't really open too much, Rafi, but I don't see a great way of accomplishing that goal.
Yeah, in this situation, sometimes you just have to score as many points as you can and hope that you hit something nice off of what currently is available to you. the board is not dead. There is an eye to bingo down from to the triple that could score a lot of points. The tee is still open. The unfortunate thing for Jon is there are no more hooks in the pool to haw. So there's no way he's going to be able to benefit from that spot. So he has an uphill battle for sure, but he's not quite out of it yet.
Yeah, he's got some chances. Of course, the 2 U's on the rack, definitely not what you would normally want to see. It feels like maybe at this point, are you thinking, if you're Jon, about trying to massage your rack enough to get a bingo ending in X? It feels like this is going to be the last line of defense that Nigel will want to block. He's probably going to be looking at other parts of the board, or he's just going to look to outrun you. So if he doesn't really do anything to address the defensive, quality of the board right now, he's going to probably score a bunch of points. That would be the reason that he doesn't make a defensive play. But if he does play defense, maybe it's in this area and you try to get something ending in X. That does not feel very likely, but there you go. This is kind of what I'm talking about here. He's addressing the hooks on haw. There actually aren't any available from his perspective in the pool, but he's addressing the tee of intro. And that X is open for good reason, Rafi. Getting a bingo there is next to impossible.
Yeah, there's very few 8-letter words that end in X. The closest one that Jon has right now is probably fourplex. That's not in the pool. And so, yeah, his only chance right now is something else. He can't bingo to the X and have any chance of winning. And at this point, it looks pretty bleak. I don't know how he can win with only 1 tile, or actually 3 tiles in the bag. I think his best chance would be to score a decent amount of points and hope somehow that Nigel has the cue and can't do much with it.
Yeah, that cue is definitely top of mind for both players here. It is still lurking in the bag. So there's definitely, you need to at least look around. And if I'm Jon, I'm thinking to myself, is it possible at all that I could block all spots where that cue would play and create a very favorable situation for myself in the end game? And there we go. This is exactly the sort of move that does accomplish that, as I feel like this eye might be the only reasonable place to play the cue without the eye on Nigel's rack. But Jon is going to get the bad news that I guess the eye is coming to him, but also the cue, and that should probably do it for him in this game. But I think that actually made a good deal of sense, Rafi, to play up there.
One other option that I saw too was that he could have tried to fish for playing Quelia through the E and the A up there. That would be a 70-point cue play, and while it would probably fall short, it still would pose a question to Nigel as to whether he needed to block it or not.
Wow, nice. That's really cool. So the E and A already on the board, and the L already on Jon's rack. He would have had to draw. He would have had a U already. So basically, some combination of Q, E. We can see the E was on Nigel's rack, but he doesn't know that. So that would have been a really cool thought to create an extremely annoying high-scoring play. I feel like that works against a lot of players, Rafi, that might just miss that spot. But unfortunately, Nigel is not missing that much of the time.
For sure. The only real way it would work is if there was a cue bingo in the pool as well, and you had to address either or.
Yeah, that leaving some fog of war could have been a nice way to go. But either way, just to be clear, a lot of these, outcomes from this point would have been extreme pipe dreams for Jon. He was in a very, very rough shape to try to win this game. And it hasn't worked out for him, but he's going to have at least one more shot at it as maybe the last remaining person, depending on how the rest of the standings shake out. he might continue to be the last hope. As Nigel is going to move up to 23-3, an insane record with 5 games to go. He's already 5.5 games ahead of Joey Krafchick. That means I think it's just down to Jon here, Rafi, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct. Jon will be 4 games behind with 5 to go. So Jon will need to win 5 games in a row against the best player in the world, possibly the best gamer in the history of games. And he's going to have to win 5 in a row to do it. And it has been done 3 times in a row by Joel Sherman back at 2018 Nationals. So it is not impossible, but it is a very, very tall task for anyone.
That might be the craziest feat that we would ever have seen in the game of Scrabble, for somebody to defeat Nigel 5 straight times in order to capture a championship. I think we can all, I mean, if Jon wins even 2 games in a row or something to end the day, that's going to create such anticipation for tomorrow that I really, no slight to Nigel, who I love watching play and love to see him rewarded for his incredibly brilliant abilities. I definitely feel like I would love to see a couple Jon wins just to keep things interesting heading into the final day.
I agree. The more drama, the better. And back to the game, this has been really, really interesting. Noticing how long Nigel's taking on this turn. He often plays his endgames very, very quickly, and he's taking a long time on this one. So I'm wondering what he's thinking and how he's trying to decide how to address the Q spot for Jon up top, where Jon is likely to play Quay if it isn't blocked.
Yeah. Is this an opportunity for Nigel? What exactly? Just looking around. So I guess the issue is that this spot is way better than, I suppose, just Toke or something like that. I'm not even sure what else Jon can do, Rafi, at the lower left area of the board, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe playing up high winds up working better. All right. Oboe instead is the play. This is interesting. Looking along on Quackle, this is not the play that Quackle wants him to play. In fact, it's nowhere to be found on the list.
Interesting.
So I'm very curious to have a look at this with an even stronger engine and see if it concurs with Nigel's choice here. Oh, Kirsch, right. Okay, everybody's pointing out that Kirsch is also available into the SH. So sacrificing too much to block up high makes no sense when Jon can score in the 30s in both spots. And to his credit, he spots it. That's really nice. Great job by Jon, who's actually really impressed me in his 2 games that we've gotten to watch here, Rafi. And now Nigel will have the ability to either go out with yay, or he may just plop his Y down first because Jon has IOU and no great place to play all 3 of those.
And that might have been where the engine had a misstep and didn't find Oboe, because after Kirsch, it is very clear that the best play is not to go out in 2. And the engine really likes to find out in 2s, and it kind of struggles a little bit with out in 3s. So it's possible that Oboe was indeed the best sequence, and the engine could not find it immediately.
Yeah, I'm about to check using our even stronger engine, Macondo, and there you go. He plays just the Y as predicted, which is very impressive that he is all over it like usual. So, let me just see. I'm so curious now to see what we can discover when I load this game into Macondo. I'm going to do that in just a second, but Yeah, nicely played, of course, as usual by Nigel. And we're about to almost certainly, I'm going to get that confirmation that he has outdone our previous computer engine and found a sequence that's even better. And what can you say when that happens, Rafi? But man, it's just never gets old to watch.
Never. It's pretty incredible. Nigel just he finds everything. He finds everything and he finds it quickly. And when he doesn't find it quickly, it's because the computer can't find it at all.
So OI under the Q for Jon. And then Ya and Yor, again, the best play. And that is going to give Nigel a final score of, hopefully it loads for me. There we go. 481 to 409. So a critical win for Nigel. He is getting closer and closer to clinching victory here. Not sure what we'll expect to hear if we cut over the board, but maybe we'll see.
You were supposed to pick two.
Yeah. Was it the last in the bag?
What's that?
The Q was in the bag. last
Yes.
time.
Yeah. When I played fail. But okay. You are for Clara there. I got it, but I don't see any place for you. Well, good. And you want me to submit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's 409, 481.
Yes. Game 26.
Well, all right. We got an actual question. Was the Q the last tile in the bag? And it was among them. But yeah, not too much. I mean, this game was pretty firmly in Nigel's control, Rafi. So not too much to go after in the post game.
For sure. And Jon played a really, really phenomenal game with the only real misstep there being not playing the 9-letter bingo, and that was a very, very small error, it turned out. So yeah, talk about it a little bit, and now Jon just has to get ready for another battle, see what he can do, see if he can roll off 5 straight wins.
Sorry, I muted for a second. I'm looking just to try to figure out. I might be doing something wrong, but looking at this end game using Macondo, it recommends a sequence for Nigel that winds up winning by 68 points. And as it turns out, with both players playing optimally, Nigel won by 72 points. So
Was Kirsch the optimal play?
Well, after
Kirsch,
oh, I see what you're saying. After
Kirsch might have not been optimal.
Right. So let me see. That's a good point. Although, yeah, I just need to reverse direction here and enter that in. So then Nigel plays oboe, right? So Jen commit 6. We're going to figure this out. Did he beat the engine again? Okay. And then from Jon's perspective, Kirsch is what Macondo wants from him. So, yeah, I think for whatever reason, it's recommending a sequence prior to Nigel's play of oboe that winds up winning by 68. Whereas after optimal play, after oboe, he wins by 72. So,
Crazy.
yeah, I just don't. I'm probably doing something wrong. So I guess are people already Macondoing this in the chat and discovering that it wants him to play oboe? If I run Macondo on low plies. Okay, more plies. I don't know how to do that. Thank you, everybody, for knowing more. So I guess he has done what the engine wants, which is one of the less least surprising things to discover. I thought maybe there's some chance, but I don't think this end game is so complicated and Makondo's end game is so accurate that I would be surprised if there was some issue with this one. So in any case, nicely done to Nigel. And if we consider the standings now, so Jon going into this game was 3 games back. With his win, Nigel moves to 4 games ahead of Jon with 5 to go in the tournament.
And they have him playing Ori in this round, and maybe the reason is because I wonder if the pairings are right given the situation, because Ori cannot catch Nigel.
Well, yeah, I guess it's not showing Ori's previous result. Technically, if Ori won his game, he would move up to 5. Oh no, he would be 6 games back of Nigel. This is kind of weird. I wonder, do we want to sanity check this?
Jon is the only one who can mathematically catch Nigel at this point.
Yeah, I mean, in point of fact, Ori's gonna, play as hard as anyone against Nigel. So, but I feel this is kind of a weird choice.
The only thing that makes this okay is that even if Nigel wins, if Jon wins also, he'll be 4 behind with 4 left.
Okay.
But he'll be a ton of spread behind, and he'll have to win by 500 total over the course of 4 games. So it'll be nearly insurmountable, but 500 points over 4 games against most people is pretty doable. I don't know if anyone could beat Nigel by 500 points over 4 games very easily.
Yeah, that's going to be a tall order. Yeah, I think I know it seems like neither Nigel or Ori have any objection that they're about to play on stream, but I would love to just get a confirmation that this is like the director has vetted this pairing. So what we're going to do maybe is just take just a minute break and cut to the break screen. And we're going to figure out whether this is really the game we want to show and what the rationale might be for that. And we'll be right back. We're going to get you Nigel. We'll figure out who exactly is going to be his opponent. Maybe it is Ori, but let's figure this out real quick. We'll be right back with round 27 from the Word Cup. All right, everybody. We are going to stick with this pairing. The pairings were made prior to the previous round. But if you think about it, Jon Shreve does still control his own destiny. He has to win his game. And if Nigel wins as well, it sets up a many game in a row kind of series where Jon has to continue to beat Nigel as many times as possible until either Nigel clinches or Jon makes an epic comeback. Also, if Ori wins this game against Nigel, it makes Jon's life a lot easier too. He would only have to win. Well, he still probably has to win all 4, in fact. So it doesn't actually change that much. Jon has to win his game, and that's going to earn him the right to continue to face off many, many times in a row against Nigel. Ori Swift standing in Nigel's way as he gets ever closer to clinching victory at the World Cup, Rafi.
And in a way, this could actually be a little bit easier for Jon, because Jon, whoever he is playing, will have a higher chance of winning. And Ori is just as good an opponent to play Nigel as Jon would be. So this actually could be a nice little break for Jon to try to win a game against someone a little bit easier, and to hope that Ori can take care of business here.
Yep. So players have been waiting patiently for that confirmation. We are ready to go anytime, I believe. Ori, a player we've seen a number of times. I think we actually saw him play. I think we saw him play Nigel on day 3 to start things off in that session. So no stranger. And that game, definitely, Nigel drew very well, if I'm not mistaken. So hopefully, for Ori's sake, the tiles smile on him a bit more. And yeah, we should be ready to go as soon as the players are ready. So might be getting, Joey and Shreve are holding until the pairings are confirmed. Okay, I think we've now, yeah, we're about to start. All right, so pairings issues have been resolved. This is somewhat of an unprecedented situation to be this close to clinching so early, Rafi, which is probably why some of the, look at that first tile. We've seen that a number of times. First tile out of the bag, the blank for Nigel. What else is he going to get with it here?
Looks like he has not the best stuff with it, which is very good for Ori to still have a chance. Nigel having a blank bingo to open the game would be very, very hard to come back from. And yeah, so a lot of blanks on Nigel's racks in this tournament. He would still probably be winning the tournament without them, but the reason he's ahead by so many games is because he has just been drawing blank after blank after blank.
Yeah. Blank's always going to help, especially when you have the vision and creativity to make maximal use of them every time, as Nigel does. But yeah, I think there's no question that even as amazing of a player as Nigel is, to have a record this good in a field this strong, you have to also draw some good stuff. And I would say overall, that is what we've seen from him. But that's the tiles that he's drawn have allowed him to get out to an insane record. Most people with the same tiles would probably, if you're an expert or a grandmaster level player, you would probably still be towards the top or at the top of the standings, but not with quite as commanding of a result as he has had.
And Ori here is set to play Evite as a nice overlap. If the V was up slightly higher, Nigel would have a very obscure bingo through that V, but there's just not quite enough space to do that here.
Yeah, that would be unbelievable to see a bingo there, but advocat, that would be so impressive. I don't think Nigel actually has a bingo yet. He's getting set to play Data. Maybe just off of the EX right here. That seems reasonable, leaving CA blank. It certainly opens the board a little, but not crazily so. And Ori with some good tiles too. So even if Nigel lands an early bingo, I feel like Ori is not going to be blown away from the get-go, holding the Z and an S in reserve, Rafi, which is a good thing for us all.
If Nigel plays Data here, then Ori will probably be paralleling it with Zek for like upwards of 50 points. So even with Nigel drawing that first blank, Ori is actually going to have a decent lead here.
Yeah, Zek. That's going to come down really fast. I don't think there's much need for Ori to look around too much. He probably knows the odds of him having a bingo with the Z and the K together are quite minimal. There you see it lined up. He very likely knows that against Nigel, you need to take your obvious plays as quickly as possible with the expectation that Nigel, even though he never looks rushed when he's playing, he goes at such a good clip that you need every second that you can get. So nicely done by Ori. He's barely used a minute and a half on his clock for the first couple moves of the game, and he has a 40-point lead here and an S in reserve. So things looking good. Tough draw for Nigel with all those vowels, though.
Yeah, that's probably about a bottom 5% draw for him. If you take any of those vowels and turn them into a consonant, then he's almost certain to have a bingo. And now he's kind of forced to just play off two vowels for only a small score. Looking to right now to play OE and Oka looks like what he's going to do. And yeah, just having to blank on your opening rack and not bingoing for 3 turns is pretty rough.
Yeah, OE. That doesn't feel like an inspiring play, but it actually scores a solid 18 points, which is more than you would usually expect by dumping just 2 vowels. And if I'm Ori seeing Nigel play OE for 18, I feel a little concerned that I know exactly what's coming. I feel like what it would inspire me to do, Rafi, is to play through this E at all costs. I do not want to allow Nigel to hit a double-double through there. Exactly what Ori is doing. Block it off now while he has a decent play that does so. I definitely think that's a great choice by him.
And Ori is known to be a very, very strong defensive player. He recognizes that by playing Liu, he's blocking off the S hook from it to make ips. He's blocking off the E to play an 8-letter word through, and the E is by far the best tile to do that with. And he really restricts the chances of bingoing on this board. Now, really, the only spot is through that L in exactly the 5th position, or hooking an S under OE to make OES, or through the IT to play dacoities, which Nigel spots nearly instantly. Amazing.
Yeah. What can you say? That's the only available, I should say, bingo. Dacoities through IT. No 7s, no 8s available. That was it. 9 letters. And of course, he spotted it very quickly. He gave it a good look, scanning the board for any possibility of something better. But this is definitely the play. Very impressive. What can you say? It's just like clockwork, no matter how difficult the bingo may be. Admittedly, I do think that Nigel is not the only player at this level who would see that particular 9-letter word, as it is a plural of a 7-letter word, an obscure one to be sure. But I do think, for example, Ori probably knows dacoity and might be able to find dacoities a high percentage of the time. But again, it's the speed and the consistency, in addition to the outlandish nature of some of these words, that we are all reacting to when we watch him.
Yeah, and I think that playing dacoities right there would be a little bit easier for a lot of players to find if you don't have quite as many vowels, if you maybe have the S instead. It doesn't look very natural to play through the IT when you have 5 vowels combined in that word. And I think the natural thing for most players to do would be to try to find an 8 through that L first, and then only after not finding one to look through the IT. So yeah, not a play that every top player will find. Definitely one that a lot of top players can find, and Nigel finds it in 20 or 30 seconds.
Yeah, pretty remarkable. Tough question for Ori now with his F. He's thinking about playing the F here. I would certainly be tempted to try to cover this spot too, which could be so damaging if a really high scoring consonant landed in this square. I do feel like this spot is also kind of dangerous, so leaving that open might not be that much better, but it's a tough call. It seems like Ori has been considering playing things with the F here, like FIL, but I don't think he's really considered a play like flan right here yet, which seems to have some merit as well, just to cover up that spot. He's going to go with FIL, Phil, setting up his A with Fila. Of course, the E also hooking, among other things. I think this is probably as good as anything else, but a lot of different ways he could have gone there, Rafi.
I think probably one of the main reasons he didn't choose to play on the triple to the left is that the X is already out. So the biggest tile that can go under that A has already been played. So it isn't quite as big of a threat as normal. And yeah, I mean, he would have to play a fourth tile off if he wanted to play there, and his ANRS leave had a lot of synergy. He would have to also play off his A instead of his I, and the A is a much better tile for bingoing than the I. So I think he's looking to give himself the best chance of bingoing, and that is why he chose Phil over Flan.
Makes a lot of sense. Nigel had lined up Farm, which would have gotten rid of both his F and M, playing on top of Dacoites, but with that spot blocked by Ori, he plays Tram, which was by far his highest scoring play. And this creates a situation where Ori, with his very solid leave, he draws an E, which is good news, giving him flexibility with File, but drawing the Q along with the Y is a tough one. I guess it just feels very natural, Rafi, to me to just dump that Q, and you should be able to bingo a fair amount of the time after just dropping the Q for 22 here.
I agree, Will. The Q dump there is very, very clearly the best option here. There's only one other spot to play the Q above the I and Liu. Or he could actually play Trank down from the T, but playing off your R, A, and N, which are amazing bingo tiles with your S, isn't very appetizing. So playing QIS, which Ori did pretty quickly, is definitely the best.
Yeah, seems pretty solid. We will just have to see what Ori draws. It's going to be a big question here. If he connects, it's such a different game. He draws an O. Doesn't seem like the best draw for him. I don't think that means that Ori's...
Yo.
Ooh. Not sure if having any audio issue again. We'll be on guard for it. Nigel playing Frown for 22. He doesn't... This is such a weird-looking play because it doesn't really hit any bonus squares, but it at least addresses the FIL hooking area and dumps a lot of Nigel's consonants in one go. What do you think of that one, Rafi, if your audio is cooperating?
I think Frown seems like a reasonable play. It's kind of goofy to make a play that doesn't really hit any good bonus squares, but when you have a bunch of consonants and there's a big spot open to play a bingo, and this is your best way to block it, then by all means, Frown is probably the right thing to do. And Ori, despite not having a bingo, actually has a pretty good option available, multiple good options using his Y and his O. He will probably be able to bingo next turn finally. And when you're close to a bingo and you have to fish off using only 1 or 2 tiles, this is one of the best options you can have to do that.
Yeah, look at these 2 nice hooks. It's very interesting to think if you play with Dexy, you are creating a good scoring spot. But as you said before, the X is already on the board. So the downside risk of that spot is not horrible, especially given that there are other decent places on the board to play. Or you could really go for it and play something like Yo. I don't think this is advisable here. There's too many hooks that you can get hit with after a play like this. You could also just play Oi, setting yourself up a line that's a little safer. Or he's going to go ahead and play Yo. These plays are really close in my estimation, Rafi. I guess the thing about playing Oi and Frowny is that you actually do not have very many hooks. Really, only the S can go across there. So it's kind of a deceptively not that great bingo line. So maybe Ori's play is a solid one for him here.
Yeah, I like his choice. Yo also sets up an N hook too. So he has one of the tiles that can go after Yo. He also keeps open the ability to start a bingo with a vowel by hooking on the N in frown. And with that T in the very, very left side of the board, unobstructed, he has a really good chance of drawing a bingo. And indeed, he will be able to bingo next turn.
Yeah, seems like between, I guess if Nigel were to play in this area, what would that leave left for Ori? It might block everything unless I'm missing something, but Nigel is about to play Drum and Yod here. That's going to leave everything open for Ori to bingo next turn, which is a nice break for him. Nigel leaving the J left over. I wonder if he's got some plan for it, which you always have to worry about looking for. When he keeps one of those high point tiles, he's got some kind of plan a lot of the time. And Ori looks like he is getting ready. Wonder what he's thinking about, because there we go. That is his highest scoring bingo by a fair margin, Rafi. I was worried he was going to try something else. Sarcenet 77. This definitely feels called for.
For sure. Highest scoring bingo. Definitely put it down. There's no defensive drawbacks to it. So good choice by Ori to play it pretty quickly. And going back to Nigel's last play of Drum, I think that his plan for the J was maybe hoping to hit something starting from the top right double letters score to go down to make a 4-letter word, making EF. A play there like Jane, for example, would score almost 50 points. And I think that's what he was going for when he played Drum.
That makes a lot of sense. Sure. You can definitely draw stuff right here a lot of the time. Plenty of things can fit in there with the right draw with your J, and that spot does feel somewhat unlikely to be blocked. And look at this. Wow. Huge opportunity for Ori. There is no way he is not going to see Sanguine at the top of the board, Rafi. This could be huge for Ori in this game, and by extension, for everybody else in the tournament. I guess that's just Jon Shreve at this point, who needs Nigel to drop this game to retain some winning chances.
Yeah, finally, someone drawing very well against Nigel late in this tournament. Ori is probably very, very excited here to have a guaranteed bingo next turn. Even if it's blocked, he still has Anguine in another spot. So Ori doesn't really have much to think about here. Just has to wait and see what Nigel does, and make sure his tracking is good, or the other factors in the game that you have to think about when you're not thinking about what word to play.
Look at this though. So Nigel this definitely, even though it is great news that Ori is going to be able to bingo here, he is now down to one and only one spot. And this spot is way scarier to bingo with than Sanguine would have been. Not only does it not score quite as well, you can see it makes this gigantic spot that Nigel could potentially use. So even though Ori is 100% correct to play this word as fast as he can, I would definitely have preferred in his shoes to play Sanguine rather than currently. He's going to be a little bit on edge, waiting to see what Nigel does in response to that. It could be terrible if Nigel has a huge bingo in that spot. It could cede his advantage completely back. But Nigel is very likely to just play Job for 51, which is a great score. But I wonder, can Ori draw the second blank? Can he draw something good? And it looks like the answer is not yet. Game is still going to be really close, Rafi.
Agreed, Will. This draw for Ori was definitely not very good. When you draw the W and U combo, you almost never have a bingo, and it's very hard to get rid of them at the same time. They're two of the worst tiles in the game, and they do not make words together very often. So Ori has a lot to think about here, trying to decide if he wants to play something like pumped through the M, if he wants to play pup parallel to Sanguine.
Yeah. Pumped here seems reasonable. It does leave the W, but at least there are no more U's to come in the bag to really hurt the W. There is a V, which isn't ideal, but the U is really the whammy tile that you're looking to avoid when you have a W. I guess from Ori's perspective, as you say, pup right here scores pretty well, but I would certainly be a little leery of that with the two S's unseen. I guess you could potentially also play pupa there, although that's not that relevant. I kind of like pumped just because it doesn't hook with anything. It turns a few more tiles to try to get that all valuable, all important and valuable blank or one of the two S's. That's where my instinct is here, but we'll see what Ori elects to do. What do you think of pumped, Rafi? Kind of my instinct is it's a decent play here.
I agree. Pumped not taking a hook is very, very important. It makes it very, very difficult now to access the bottom. And with the OE hook being really the only good bingo lane on the board, aside from the RE lurking in the top left, which Nigel could play a 9 off of, the board will be very, very, very difficult to bingo on.
Yeah, for sure, which definitely favors the player with the lead, even if that lead, so Ori already up by a decent margin, 36 plus whatever he gets for his next play. And he's managed his time very well in this game, I would say. Normally, we've seen much bigger disparities on the clock than this. Yeah, Ori is down on time to Nigel, but by a somewhat negligible amount. So he's going to be able to think through these positions pretty deeply heading into the pre-endgame and endgame. So I do like his position here quite a bit, especially after pumped going up by basically a low-scoring bingo. So he's in good shape here. But Nigel, being Nigel, is definitely going to do whatever it takes to come up with a possible winning pathway here. You can definitely bet on that.
And look at both players right now. Ori has his hands on his head. He is concentrating very, very hard. And Nigel looks a little bit less relaxed than he normally does. He has his hand on his face in this resting pose where normally he looks way more relaxed than this. So both players are thinking very, very hard right now in a very critical game.
Yeah, without question. Ori thinking hard. I just wonder what, from his perspective, worries him the most. He's trying to come up with what is the scariest pathway back for Nigel. I feel pretty good if I'm Ori about intermediate scoring plays, pretty much all the highest scoring tiles, the power tiles, as we say, K, I guess, among them, but really the Q, X, J, and Z have all been played. So nothing huge to worry about there. It really feels like it's all about stopping a bingo. That would be the top priority. And it's very difficult to do anything about an S hook here. So if I'm Ori, I'm wanting to obstruct this E, if at all possible. And that's where my thought process leads me to, again, the play of pumped, which we're talking about. Looks like he's going in a different direction. Is he really going to play pup? That seems like some players would play pup, but I would be kind of surprised if Ori played that, Rafi.
I don't think that he'll play pup. And if he does play pup, he might play pup on the left side, putting a P in the triple lane, but simultaneously taking out an S hook. Note that Anguin does not take an S. Oh, interesting. He plays pump without the ED. That is a very reasonable play and a lot better than pup and other options.
Yeah, agreed. So this does not give enough room to play a 7-letter word with a terminal S. No hooks to data in this lexicon. So you don't have to worry about that. You've blocked the N, which has some value with 2 G's and 2 I's left. Bingos to the E. Yeah, you might want to block them, but think about it. They don't even score that much, and they give you a counter right back, as Nigel instantly playing caves here, using his only vowel to do so. I wonder if he was ever at any point thinking about Vax at the top of the board as well. That could have been a good option, scoring somewhat at literally the same, in fact. So caves for 37 versus Vax for 37 at the top of the board, putting a V out in space, which could be kind of annoying to deal with, Rafi. Interesting choice. My gut says I kind of prefer Vax, but far be it from me to question Nigel here.
One potential reason he may have played caves is that any decent scoring play through the C opens up a lane to play a bingo, an 8-letter bingo from whatever tile you put in the corner. So while it doesn't open up a bingo lane immediately, it's likely to open up a little bit easier to start with than a V, because Vs are not very good for starting bingos.
That is true. And that's a good point. So this could be a multi-turn sort of idea by Nigel, that if the C stays open and he can get a play down through it, you've now created a lane that's very, very annoying in a lot of cases for Ori to block while also scoring a lot of points. I suppose theoretically, though, if you had a good play through this A overlapping whatever Nigel played, that could be just what Ori wants. But look at that draw. Ori, the second blank, finding its way onto his rack in the nick of time. And Nigel does not have a great ability to play through that C at all. I wonder what he's going to try to do to wring victory out of this game here, which looks very grim for him right now. Definitely loving Ori's chances.
Yeah, Ori looks to be in the driver's seat right now for sure, especially with the blank on his rack. Of course, Nigel doesn't know that. So Nigel may be looking to make some sort of play that plays off more tiles than other plays. Normally here, it's like you might want to make a play like tab or bat, leaving a 5-tile combination that bingos frequently. But with so few tiles left in the bag, a play like binate to play off 5 tiles, score more points, and have extra draws at the blank might be warranted here.
If binate is the play, that would be instant game over, as Ori would quickly spot Leggiero through this E, and that would be that. Doesn't make the play wrong. It just means in this particular instance, Nigel would be walking into that buzzsaw. It makes sense maybe that if you do play binate, here. Maybe Nigel can induce kind of a weak block of this area, and then maybe he can draw a bingo at the top of the board, especially through RE. This seems like a decent place to play a 9-letter word, but Nigel plays bait instead of binate, and he's still going to get hit for the gargantuan triple. Down it comes. Blank is going to be, I'm looking at the designation right now, the O, nicely spotted. And that's going to do it. I don't see a way after such a huge score for Ori Swift that Nigel's going to be able to win this one in the end game, even with a bingo. That score for Leggiero, 149 points across 2 triple word scores. And that's going to do it. And for those of you wondering, can Nigel bingo out with hentais? Not in this lexicon. Unfortunately, we're not going to get to see Nigel play hentais here. That would be a viral Scrabble moment if ever there was one.
This bingo of Leggiero has more implications than just Ori winning the game against Nigel, because if Jon Shreve is to lose his current game, he will need to win 4 games in a row and also catch Nigel on spread. And he's currently down by about 1,000 in spread, which would mean that he would have to win 4 in a row by around 500. Now, with this additional close to 200 points that Nigel's going to lose in spread, that cuts Jon's deficit down by a considerable amount. He'll only have to win those 4 games by a total of 400, which is a much, much, much easier task.
Yeah, great point. A lot is going to hinge on that result between Jon Shreve playing Joey Krafchick here. It's been pointed out in the chat by several people, Rafi, that Ori just drew Uri out of the bag. Uri Swift. I'm sure he knows better than anyone that that's nothing close to that is a valid spelling for him. But yeah, great job by Ori. I feel like he made several very, very nice plays here. And Nigel just playing het on top of Leggiero as expected. That is the optimal play. I think he's preparing to play sane at the top of the board, if I'm not mistaken. That seems like a really, really good place to play those letters for a good amount of points. And then he has backup plays everywhere if that play gets blocked. Oh, I guess Ains is even better. You can play Ains all the way down. So nicely done by Nigel again. It's hard to emphasize how crazy it is, the accuracy and speed with which he plays these end games. It really is a very different set of skills than generating the plays in the beginning and mid game of a Scrabble game. So it's just so crazy to me that he's also the best at that part of the game.
It almost makes me wonder if he has some sort of synesthesia where when he sees a play on the board, it doesn't show up as a word, it shows up as a color. And the correct endgame play always shows up as green, and all the other plays show up as red. And so then he just knows, I have to play this play, because he can see it in a different light than everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be something like that, which is difficult for us to wrap our brains around, because it's very difficult to envision the actual process going on to figure out that stuff so quickly. It's a treat to watch. It really is. And it's in multiple languages as well. And yeah, just awesome to see it in real time, which hopefully a lot of you out there are agreeing. I know for many of you out there on YouTube, the last few days might be the first time that you've ever gotten to see Nigel compete live. It's a really fun experience. He's definitely thrown a bunch of curveballs and made a bunch of plays that have been incredible to see. And he won a couple of games that I don't think that many other players would have been able to convert. So if you have been watching over the last few days, really appreciate everybody for stopping by. We've got some numbers, and, just personally, it's been a goal of mine to have over 1,000 people watching a Scrabble live stream at one time. We've had it a couple times in the history of the game, but certainly never on a stream that I have had anything to do with or produced. So really appreciate all of you out there watching along, chatting, having good vibes, and hanging out with me and Rafi this afternoon.
Ori puts down Yo, which is the best endgame play. And again, Will, just what you were saying about getting all the views. Big congrats on working your channel up from the ground and getting a ton of popularity and getting so many people who didn't know anything about Scrabble into the game in various degrees, either as a new player or as a fan or whatnot. So really nice work on your part to grow the game.
Yeah, I appreciate that, though it has been very much a team effort by all different people within the scene, and a big win for Ori here. We will definitely try to figure out as soon as we know what was the result from the Jon Shreve versus Joey Kravchik matchup. That determines a lot. It has to do with what is Jon's objective going into these last few games against Nigel. Does he need to win each and every game? And does he need to, as Rafi was breaking down, does he need to win by a ton of points to overtake Nigel's tiebreaker? Or does he simply need to win his games by any amount? Definitely will change a lot of his decision-making. Either way, it is Jon Shreve who has put himself in position, as I rudely am saying this because Nigel is very much a human being, a lovely person to talk to. He's not inhuman in any sense, but I was about to say humanity's last hope against Nigel. That's rude to say, but you all understand what I mean. It's up to Jon if anyone's going to stop Nigel here. But if Nigel wins, it's going to be tremendously well-deserved. He's given us an amazing show. And again, Rafi, the crazy thing that really we can't forget about is not even the only slip up that he even came close to making in terms of word knowledge and keeping all the dictionaries straight is a Spanish word. He almost played a Spanish word on day 1 or 2. Other than that, literally no lexicon confusion whatsoever, trying to keep straight the North American lexicon, the international English lexicon, and now both French and Spanish are in that noggin as well. That to me is just, I don't know if we've talked about it. Everybody likely knows about it with him, but just it does bear repeating how crazy that is.
It is very, very amazing. It's kind of like a professional basketball player deciding to play baseball and actually being a top baseball player, and then deciding to play football and being a top football player, and then deciding to become a swimmer. It's unbelievable to be able to do what he's doing, even in one lexicon, and to be able to do it in 4, and to understand the ins and outs of how the letters work together is just unbelievable.
Yeah, truly. In the long list of things that we can marvel about, that's definitely high on it for me. So, this game is complete. Very nicely done by Ori to stare into the the serene visage of Nigel and come up with a great win, in which really Ori played an excellent game. I'm looking over the move list from the game, and I'm thinking to myself, each and every move, he just nailed it. So fantastic performance by Ori Swift, who, again, a fantastic player in his own right, too. Was a finalist at the Scrabble Players Championship a couple years ago, and nobody at all would be surprised to see Ori win a major championship in North America at some point. He really is a fantastic player. In addition to a great Magic the Gathering player, Ori is, I should say. And it's cool within our midst. I'm certainly not one of these people, but we have some two sport stars in our midst. And you yourself are one of those, Rafi. We were going to maybe get a chance to talk about this with Annette Oberstad being considered to be on the stream as a legend of the game of poker. But for those that don't know, and I don't know why they would because we haven't talked about it yet, Rafi Stern just came in the top 125-ish in the main event of the World Series of Poker, which is crazy that you are like a Scrabble Grandmaster level player and doing not really side quests. Maybe Scrabble is your side quest at this point.
Yeah, it was an incredible run. I can't believe that I did that. It was my first time playing the main event, and it just so much went right. And to play that for 5.5 days and have a chance to come close to winning the whole thing was really a treat. And playing Scrabble actually helped me a ton for that tournament. When you play in a Scrabble tournament, you have to be on every single turn. You don't have a chance to take a turn off. In poker, you can fold. You fold most of your hands. And when you fold, you don't have to do anything for around 2 minutes. And sometimes you're folding for an hour and you play almost no hands in an entire hour. In Scrabble, you don't have that opportunity. So in a lot of ways, playing in the main event of the World Series of Poker was easier than playing in a Scrabble tournament like this in terms of how much brain power is required. So what players are doing here, playing 31 games of Scrabble, is really, really no small feat. And anyone who's a top level Scrabble player, I imagine, with some work, could learn to become a top poker player as well.
Yeah, I mean, you say that, but it seems like a very tall order. I find it difficult to imagine myself having the same level of success that you have had. So it's super impressive. It was awesome to see. Like we said, Ori also an accomplished Magic the Gathering player on the Pro Tour in that game. So yeah, pretty cool to see that. Nigel, his side quests are all in the world of Scrabble. He has not strayed that far. He's conquering languages one by one. But yeah, with this game in the books, I think what we're going to do now, given that we have at least one more game between Jon and Nigel, the situation is Jon Shreve has to continue to beat Nigel as many times as possible. One more win from Nigel against Jon, and that will do it. Nigel Richards will be the champion in the WoW division of World Cup 2025. So while the players are on their break, we too will take a quick break and come back with Jon and Nigel to determine how many more Nigel games we get to watch, or will he clinch and we'll switch over to the Collins division. Rafi and I will be right back with that matchup from round 28 at the World Cup. All right, folks. Nice short break there. Jon and Nigel are set to go here. So we've got the situation where we're going to figure out exactly how many combined points Jon needs to win by here. But what we do know, Rafi, Jon's got to win 4 games in a row, and he's got to win them by a solid margin if he is going to pull off what might be the most incredible feat we've seen in North American Scrabble.
It is not an insurmountable task, but it is very, very close to that. Being down 4 games with 4 to go, requiring him to win all 4 and win by a pretty large margin is definitely going to be tricky. But it is not impossible. If Jon wins 3 games by a margin and 1 by a very large margin, that could be enough. So he doesn't need to panic and try to start winning by a lot right off the bat.
Yeah, for sure. Start out by winning a few games. That's what I would be thinking. It's already difficult enough to do that. And dox the opener for Jon. This makes a good amount of sense to me. It doesn't feel like it's a play that's going to light the world on fire, but you score 22 points, get rid of the X. And maybe after Nigel's potential overlaps of these plays, maybe you get some good counterplay with your W. And he does draw. Wow, he draws twirled. That's pretty good. The problem is, though, that 2 of the 3 tiles that Jon just played give Nigel bingos in response, Rafi. What are the odds of that?
The odds of that are not high, but against Nigel, it seems like they're high just because he is a bingo machine. And this is not the first time that Nigel has benefited from an X thrown out into space. You remember against Joey Krafchick, he played Saxa tile through an X in the double-double lane for over 100 points, and now, yet again, he is benefiting from an X.
Yeah. Nice job. No time really taken to find luxating for Nigel. A fantastic play through the X. So I guess you got to be careful floating those X's out in open space against him. But over to Jon now. Very little margin for error against a player like Nigel. And this is kind of tough, Rafi. There is actually a playable bingo for him, but it is one that I feel like you could doubt the validity of over the board. Twiddler through the D of dox. I like Jon's chance to see this. He's been really good on his. Oh, is he challenging?
Whoa, that is a little bit unexpected. First of all,
Yeah, let's go ahead.
It's unexpected to challenge Nigel at all because he is known for not playing phonies. And second of all, luxate and luxated are valid words, and maybe he's confusing it with vexate, which is not a word, whereas vexation is a word. And that could be what he's skewing it with.
That is quite amazing to me in this situation where just knowing who your opponent is, that feels, I mean, the word that comes to mind is that it's a bit of a throw that you're up against Nigel, and that the odds of him phoning ever are so low. But I almost give Jon credit that if he is feeling like there's any chance that that word is not valid, he stuck to his guns, right? Like I've always talked about playing with no fear against Nigel and playing with confidence. But there, and that certainly shows that. But man, that is very surprising, to say the least.
For sure, for sure. And now it looks very possible that his bingo of Twiddler, which we might not now get the chance to see whether he decided to pull the trigger on, it might get blocked. And he might be left in a much harder position than he would have been if he decided to play Twiddler.
Yeah. Twiddler there. Not the easiest, but the position would be so much better, right? All things being equal, Nigel with just the one vowel, yes, he would have some S's to work with, but you'd be ahead. Nigel would be struggling. In fact, it seems like if you consider what are Nigel's best plays here, unfortunately for Jon, a lot of them are just going to be through this eye. Something like Gibbs or something of that nature is going to be a really nice play for him. Maybe Biggs is going to be the play, and that is going to get in the way of Jon's bingo, which he clearly now sees. So this is just a brutal turn of events for Jon. Like I said, love the confidence to feel like you might be catching Nigel in some confusion, but what a different game it would be if Twiddler, which Jon clearly sees, could have gone down instead.
For sure. And now Jon is in this position where he's likely going to have to fish off 2 or 3 tiles and not score very much, leave a decent bingo leave, but not a great bingo leave. And he's probably kicking himself now for challenging a word and having his bingo blocked if he indeed was going to pull the trigger on it.
I do feel like there is a huge psychological component to that too, right? Like feeling that you could have played a bingo and instead challenged and lost. That's quite tilting. So I'm hoping to see Jon continue to battle. His position, by the way, is far from fatal here. He's going to play something short. He could, in a moving tribute to perhaps me, he could play Will right here. That seems like a reasonable choice, setting up his tee with a good bingo leave. That seems all right. Not sure if what he's looking at playing that would also use the E, I guess just willed or something like that. But if Jon draws something good and gets the next bingo down, this game is far from out of reach for him. It is still very early, and we'll just have to see how things go from here on out. But certainly a surprising start. What do you think of the play of Will, Rafi? I won't take it personally if you don't like it.
I think that the play of Will is always the correct play. especially when you know who's doing commentary. But for real, though, it is a very strong play. Opening a T hook is really nice when you have a T in hand. The letters DERT are often going to result in a bingo ending in ED with the T in the middle. So your bingos are often going to play. And it also opens up that left side of the board with an S hanging over in the right side. So it's very unlikely that if you have a bingo in both spots, it will be blocked. So I would probably play Will here.
There you go. You heard it from Rafi Stern. Will is the best. But instead we get Wad. This, I sort of understand this, but I think my issue with this play is that I would have loved with those good bingo tiles to leave the S of Biggs open. And in order to bingo in this line now, you have to draw a bingo ending in E. But there we go. That blank finds its way into Jon's rack. And he should be able to bingo almost no matter what next turn with that draw. So things are still close enough that despite that early mishap, Jon should be right back in this game after the next play.
And he still might be able to bingo to that S even after a WAD because he can still bingo ending in IES or ERS, but it does restrict the S partially, and that is definitely a little bit of a problem. Not a huge error, but a slight misstep to play a WAD over a different play.
Yeah, so it does have the advantage compared to the play we were talking about of Will of using one fewer tile. And every time you're thinking about what to play, if you can keep 5 good bingo tiles together as opposed to 4 or 3 or 2, you start to get more and more. It scales up non-linearly, right? Every tile that's a really good bingo tile after the, whatever, 4th or 5th But look at that play. Oh my gosh. What a nice defensive play by Nigel
Wow.
to really obstruct a ton of the board, and just create a difficult situation where there are only a couple bingos now on this board for Jon. I wonder, what is he thinking of? I really hope he's not thinking of playing Merliton with an O here. Can't spell it like that. Oh no. Brutal.
This is very rough. Yeah, I am guessing that a combination of the Nigel factor and the fatigue factor are coming into play here. When you play 28 games over 4 days, the final game of the day is a rough one. You're tired, you're probably hungry, you're exhausted. Oftentimes at these tournaments, players don't sleep very well. And having the energy that you might have had during game 1 in game 28 is near impossible.
So this draw, just for the record, is clearly what's known as a courtesy draw. Once you've been on hold for a long enough time, you can still draw your new tiles. And Nigel is indeed, yeah, you can see he's put his rack on his score sheet. And up we go for the second time this game to the challenge computer. And this is going to come off. And this is going to be just a really rough start to the game here. Weirdly enough, for Jon, the two bingos that are available for him here are Minstrel through the S forming Wadi and Marlight forming Ged right here. So these are the two bingos that Jon can play that are valid. This is going to come off. So when that happens, how could Nigel possibly block both of those? I'm just curious. It doesn't seem like if there is a play like a wad or something, right? Like, is there any humanly possible way to block both spots that you could imagine, Rafi?
There is not, Will, and I actually think that is why Nigel did not challenge immediately. He was looking to see if he could bingo through one of the tiles that Jon played out, and if he could, he would have considered actually playing the bingo and leaving it on the board because he knows that Jon is guaranteed to have a bingo next turn. Not necessarily that Jon will find it, because Nigel doesn't really care about that. But if his opponent has a guaranteed bingo, whether they will find it or not, Nigel will just play as if they do find it. And if it turned out that he had a bingo through one of the floating tiles in Merliton, I think there's a chance he would have bingoed and left it on the board.
Yeah, that could be. That could very well be. Got that last play corrected. Something about putting in phony words doesn't seem to work on the scroll text. So we got that fixed. So yeah, I think Nigel now, what I would be doing and what is exactly what he is doing, this is kind of brilliant, Rafi. He's blocking Minstrel, forcing Marlight, knowing that this play doesn't seemingly give anything new back to Jon that he wasn't going to have already, and forcing him to open the triple lane and open the board massively so that he could get something, and he's going to play Mausolea through the opening. Minstrel would have given back much less compared to Marlight. I guess there is Milters. Wait a second. He gave Milters back. Huh. Okay. Well, odd. Everything I just said now has an asterisk next to it. But at least you're blocking Minstrel, I suppose. What do you think, Rafi? Does the existence of Milters make everything I said hogwash?
No, I think the reason he played Tyann, his other best play there was probably Tau, Tau. And that might have given back some bingo ending in T because of the T hook.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's very, very hard to understand why Nigel played T on without thinking about it for a very long time. It's very unnatural to keep the U on your rack when you have a good way of shedding it without giving back much more. I don't fully understand what the reasoning there was.
Yeah, interesting situation. But as much as Nigel is about to play Ramulos here, Jon has Metanoia from the F of Marlite as well as aeration into the R of Marlite. So as long as Jon can spot Metanoia, Ramulos is going to go down right here. It doesn't take any hooks. Metanoia is very safe to play and scores 83 points. So this is just a matter of Jon staying calm, continuing to be focused, and just making sure he looks through that M. Needs to find Metanoia here for sure to keep pace in this game. But if he does, there we go. Looks like he has it spotted very quickly, to his credit. So this game still going to be close, Rafi. Kind of surprising, but that's where we are.
This is very exciting, Will, and I can't believe that Jon is going to be within range after missing 2 turns due to challenges. That is incredibly hard to believe against almost any player, and especially against Nigel. He's gotten enough luck and good fortune here with this weird draw actually having a bingo to be able to stay within range. However, Metanoia has not. Okay, he's playing it, so he doesn't have any doubt. I thought there was a small chance he'd have some doubt because Metanoia was added to the dictionary in a more recent update. It hasn't been a word for more than around 10 years maximum. So after 2 lost turns due to word knowledge errors, I could imagine someone being a little bit scared to play Metanoia.
Yeah, for sure. The new words, newly added words to the dictionary sometimes are the toughest to recall just because we haven't had them that long. Unlike some of the words that have been in the dictionary for decades, there's just no way that you could have the many years worth of seeing it come up on quizzes and things like that. They're just too new. But a very rough draw for Jon here. I think he would have really needed to continue to draw fantastic letters to work this comeback even further here. Nigel getting set to play Fink down low. This is kind of an interesting choice to me because you could play Filk in the same spot. What this always, has alarm bells set off of why do that. I guess it's because this is the last L and there are 2 N's left in the bag, Rafi. I'm guessing that it's that simple.
Yeah, the N is a better tile than the L at face value, but not by a lot. And when there's 2 N's unseen and you have the last L, the last tile, the case tile, is often very, very high value compared to what it would be at the very beginning of the game. So probably just a slight change in value between the N and L because of what the pool looked like here.
Yeah, definitely agreeing with that. Prod is now the play for Jon. I feel like that is warranted. Not only does this game situation and the tournament situation almost require you to start to get a little bit aggressive here, but the fact that he had 3 R's on the rack, I think this play is kind of an acknowledgement that his situation is a little bit worse than it might appear at first glance from the score of the game. And he's realizing that I might need to get aggressive and try to make a big S hook here and see what I can do. Nigel correctly passing up a valid Collins bingo through that D and instead plays his best move of Kibe for 33. Pretty uncontroversial to me, Rafi. It looks good.
For sure. That was the standout option there. Not too much to think about. And Jon now has no vowels on his rack, but with this CH combo, with the WH combo, and the open I in Marley, he actually has a way out of the situation. And he is looking right now to potentially play whir through that I, which looks like a pretty good choice.
Yeah, whir certainly feels called for here. But as you can see, Nigel drawing the S, and he is poised to strike right here with a massive bingo that could be it, Rafi. A bingo hooking onto the triple. After this play, whir for 22. Nigel's already going to be up 43, and now he is about to tack on a huge bingo here. This could be it.
I think one of the only ways after this that Jon can get back in the game is if he bingos immediately or if he draws and knows the ATH extension to leisure.
Is that valid?
It might only be valid in the NAFTA, so you have to check. I was added to one of them, maybe both.
That's amazing. Athleisure. It is valid in this dictionary. That's amazing. And I almost hope that Nigel draws it. Please let Nigel play athleisure in this game. That would be insane. Oh, okay. Nicely spotted by Nigel, who moves up to 350 to 224. And I just am praying to see the H. Yes, the T. Oh. He just needs one of the A's. Come on. He got the two hardest ones.
Oh.
All right, folks. He's close. If there isn't a good play using the H, I guarantee that he'll find something good that uses the C and the Y and some of the other stuff and try to go for it. But it might just be the case that there isn't anything good. I'm trying to think what happens when Jon plays Zinco right here, right? Oh, echoey. Yeah, that's probably fine. I'm just wondering, is there like a good play? Yeah, he's going to play Shay to that Z, and the dream will be dead. Dang
the dream will not be dead because he will play Oyez to it instead and leave the TH.
Oh, this would be amazing. That's true. He will play this play instead, leaving TH. It's significantly better, leaving the CH combination left over. So our dream is alive. Athleisure. We really have a great chance of seeing that, don't we, Rafi? With 4 A's still unseen. One of them finds its way onto Jon's rack, along with the second blank. So that's good. There you go. This is just a better play than Shay. It's just a much better leave after this. So I don't think this is proof that Nigel sees athleisure, but I guess we'll find out.
And there's the A. He has drawn the A. And if it is not, I think there is a decent chance it will come down. But he has the V as well. So he actually might pass it up in order to play a play that uses the annoying V.
Let's just watch his tiles, right? Can we watch his tiles? Oh, he's getting ready to play just Vector, which is probably a better play, unfortunately. I would just love to see ATH align itself on his rack, even for a second, just to show. I guess it doesn't even score that well, right? It's not like that crazy of a play. So maybe it would be cool if he had drawn something like ATHZ. That would be cool, right? Because then he could set his Z up by playing athleisure. That would be among the most epic Nigel setups ever. Not to be in this game. And in fact, though, are Jon's winning chances like that dead here? Like, I feel like if I'm Jon, I'm thinking to myself, I can use my J somewhere. I have great tiles. Maybe Nigel has the Q, which is going to be next to impossible to play productively here. I might have a shot at this.
Yeah, the game is far from over from his perspective. The having the blank on his rack, having the S on his rack, he has a very good chance of bingoing soon. And there's enough tiles left in the bag that he even could maybe bingo twice. So the game is far from over, but he does need to find a way to score well with the J right now, which might end up taking away the athleisure spot if he ends up playing Jade and making EL.
Well, let's hope not for that. It does seem reasonable that he might play Jade there. But a lot of people in chat, Rafi, pointing out correctly that Vector here redraws athleisure a lot with all the T's to come.
So we may end up still seeing it. That would be amazing.
Yeah. So tricky situation for Jon. I do feel like whatever he plays here, it has to involve the J. He has Jade set up. I wonder if he's going to play it here or here. Seems very, very similar between the two. You get 4 more points playing it here. So if Jon plays it parallel to leisure, it would strictly be to keep some of the letters at the top of the board open. If he's going for points, he will leave it open. So we'll see. I guess the nice thing also is playing over on this side of the board obstructs your best S hook. You still do have another one in gulp. So tricky situation to really focus in on the actual game as opposed to Nigel playing a 10, which would be certainly very cool. Is there any other non-Jade option that feels viable here? Is there anything you can draw by just plopping your S down here? For example, do you have some kind of big J bingo you can draw? Not really sure.
You can draw into Janied, but Janied only plays in one spot. The J is typically not very good for bingoing, and so I would really want to get rid of the J here. Maybe you can play the J off for 30, and then if you don't draw a bingo, you can plop the S for another 33, only use one tile, prolonging the game, and have a chance to bingo later. So I don't think he can just play just the S right now, but I don't know. Maybe that's the way to go.
Just Jag down low for only 19. So the idea here, I guess, is rather than playing these plays up here for many more points, Jon is going to play down low in an effort to obstruct nothing that is currently open on the board. But yeah, a little bit low of a score on that one when he could have had, 14 or 15 extra points. So there is that to consider. So for the record, Vector is about 1.5 equity point ahead of athleisure before simulation. Vector sims significantly ahead of it once you start simming, likely because just keeping AH rather than CEOV is significantly better, more flexible. So we are going to see Vector go down. This is the correct play by Nigel, as you would expect. And I guess we'll find out if he gets another T here, and maybe athleisure starts to become a more actually good play, Rafi.
Yeah, it's given that the game is probably over, playing athleisure seems like the biggest thing that we have to root for at this point. Jon does not have a bingo. Actually, no, he does have a bingo. He has N skied, which is a pretty sneaky play because there's an I and not the Y. But yeah, Jon's chances of winning are almost nothing at this point. So we might just be trying to root for athleisure to come down.
Yeah, it's tough though because he has the Q now. So Nigel may be thinking, all right, well, obviously I just have to play cat, QAT, wherever I can, wherever that goes down. That might be the play. maybe there'll be some other idea. And again, I suppose he could, if he keeps AH, he could continue to redraw the last T. There would be one final T to give us a chance at it. So this bingo, by the way, of enskied with a Y is a really tough one. The one that I just wrote out on the board. I could easily see that escaping notice. Just a hard find to even know that word, see that word. Oh, goodbye. Goodbye, athleisure. Oh, well.
It is not over yet. If it gets paralleled with ED.
Yeah.
And it is still possible.
True.
But a lot needs to happen.
Yeah, EDH, a valid word. We've seen it a couple times on stream so far. So we would need to see somehow this spot stay open, Nigel keep the H, and then see the E go down here, and that would open athleisure up. And ironically, or maybe not ironically, that E being in this spot would then make athleisure significantly better of a play. You would be getting way more points for putting the H there. So the dream is not completely dead, but it's pretty close.
If Nigel plays Aqua between the A and U in Metanoia and Ramulos, and then John Bingo is putting an E there, he will play athleisure. Oh my God.
Oh, that's amazing. I didn't see Aqua. He has a great play keeping all the same letters. So now the question becomes, what, if anything, could John play? I don't really think he has, amazingly, a bingo that puts an E there, sadly. So I just don't even know. Oddly, the best play for John is a very, very nice one of Manifest up here. Look at how nice that is to fit that on the board. So, all right, it's going to be Unfasten with a blank.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. He's going to be V stuck, and Nigel's going to set it up.
Oh, V stuck. Oh, my God. That's unbelievable. We are about to see it, folks.
There's one spot for it.
There's one spot for the V. So Nigel has to just block Vow. This is it. All he has to do is block Vow, and then I think he basically has free reign to do it, doesn't he? Oh my God. Let's see what he does. Maybe not. I mean, is there any way? What is he going to do? How can he pull this off? He's just got to block this spot, I believe.
He has to play. Oh, but he can't block it with the R because it makes Vrow, and he can't block it with the E because it makes Av. How can he might not be able to do it.
Wow. Is that really true?
No, how? He can't. He has to play A-R-E. R and O-W-E is, I think, his only way of doing it. Then he can play and set up athleisure, and it will be the best endgame in the history of Scrabble ever played.
If he does this, how could he? This would be so sick. God, the only person who you could really ever expect to figure this out. I guess maybe not the only person, right? If you're thinking about athleisure the whole game, maybe you could puzzle this out. But this is an extremely high degree of difficulty endgame to get right from a theoretical standpoint. He certainly, the one thing I can say, he certainly is going to know to V-stick here, right, Rafi? That much is clear. I think he's going to figure out how to do that. Once he does that... Yeah, go ahead.
He was kind of moving his head back and forth. I think he's like, this is a pretty interesting puzzle. I'm going to figure out how to V-stick him, and then maybe I can play athleisure. He just had this really, really curious head move to him that is like, oh, this is fun.
I mean, if ever there was an end game where you had any doubt, I hate to say this because it is Nigel, but this is insane to puzzle all this out. Just to make clear, Jon has one spot for the V. If Nigel tries to block this, so he needs to retain the following letters, A, T, H, E at minimum. So you cannot use these 4 letters. You have to figure out how to block this spot with these 3, keeping heat on your rack. So that becomes the issue. You've got ERO. If you play your R, vrow is a valid word, not good enough. If you play your E, Ave is a word, not good enough. That lets him go out with the E. There's no way to play the O. This is, well, this, even if this were playable in this lexicon, it would give a vo. So it doesn't matter. The only way to pull it off is this, A-R-E. So the thing about this is there are many ways to block the V if you use these other letters, right? Definitely doable. You could play your T, that would do it. You could play your H, that would do it. Many ways to block it. If Nigel uses his R's and he has them,
My hands are on my head in awe right now. I cannot believe that he's going to do this. And our dream is happening in the best way possible. Wow. We were hoping for this, and it happened in an even more miraculous way than we could have prayed for.
Oh my God. This is so ridiculous. I really do feel for Jon here. At the same time, if I'm in his chair right now, I'm just tipping my cap. As soon as I see all of this unfold, I have no idea what's coming, probably. I'm not thinking about anything that's about to happen. but oh my God. Let me give Nigel his 9 points for A-R-E. And Jon is going to have to pass. He has no valid moves. He has already passed. Nigel is now thinking of what he needs to do. There we go.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I thought there was like a 1% chance that he wasn't going to come up with the combo. I mean, it's
this is just insane. I wonder if he's going to play Joe next and then reveal the master stroke as the final play, right? You have your choice of order here. You could just play Joe now and then reveal the master plan, which is so ridiculous. Oh my God. So crazy.
Let's see if he cracks a smile.
Yeah, his body language. This is just so insane. I cannot believe it. What an endgame to clinch victory. He goes ahead and plays it now.
And Jon just moved his head forward in this, like,
yeah,
what
like,
in the world?
Are you kidding me? Yeah, are you kidding? He challenges. Why not? You can't play your V. You might as well.
On the game, but of course he has. Yeah. What an amazing end game by Nigel, with the foresight to play Aqua to hold on to the AH combo, the ATH combo. Just absolutely incredible.
This might be the craziest end game I've seen from him ever. And there have been a lot of them, but just the whole build up to this, the fact that this is the game that's clinching tournament victory as well, and that none of this is necessary, right? This is all, he had the game totally locked up. Everything about this is peak, just total peak Nigel.
This is not just peak Nigel. This is peak human.
Yeah.
Oh, I have you 561. Were you at 400?
398.
Okay.
234.
No. Before that.
112.
What's that?
112.
2? Before that.
Oh, 70, 84.
Yeah.
97.
Oh, how much was gold?
15.
Oh, okay. I wrote down 15. All right. 559.
4.
Yes. Good. Oh, that challenge was awful in more ways than one. I didn't even notice till afterwards. I had Twiddler that you then blocked. So I was just like, ah.
One, 5. No.
Oh, congratulations. I think that means you are good service. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm 4 games behind you. I'm the closest. So now I'm 5.
Oh, you lost the last one.
I did, yeah. Yes, as did you, right?
All right. Looks like no. I mean, I certainly, if I were Jon, I would definitely be giving at least a hat tip of some sort to Nigel for that end game. But he does congratulate him on the tournament victory, Rafi, which it seemed like Nigel was not aware would happen if he won this game, which says a lot as well.
Yeah, I think he just didn't know whether Jon had won or lost the previous game. And for that matter, I don't think he cared. I think he just was going into the game trying to play his best and win. And afterward, he would see the standings and determine whether he had won the tournament or not. And now he has the opportunity to go off and have potentially some athleisure of himself. Maybe he'll go for a nice little bike ride. He is known to be an amazing biker. And yeah, athleisure, that will be the word of the tournament and potentially the word of the year.
Yeah, totally stunning. One of the craziest end games you could ever hope to see. Very happy that so many people got to watch that happen live. That's the beauty of Scrabble live streaming, folks. I hope you all felt the magic of that moment that we tried to convey. Seems like you all did. Just a banger to end all Scrabble bangers. Insane game through and through. But finishing with one of the craziest end games I've ever seen in the game that clinches victory for Nigel Richards at the 2025 World Cup. That is just peak Scrabble cinema, folks. Very privileged to get to watch that with you, Rafi.
Likewise, Will. What a day, what a series of games. And I'm so glad that I got to do this with you.
So there you go. Nigel doing Nigel things as he is wont to do. He's going to be the winner of the WoW division at the 2025 World Cup. Couldn't be more privileged to have watched not just that game, but watch him play so much. Don't want to boil it down to just him as well. There were many, many great games from the WoW division that were a treat to watch. This does cement that Jackson Smylie's quest for an incredible 4th straight World Cup. He's not going to do that. We've known that for a little while, as Jon Shreve was the only one with any odds at all to catch Nigel. But yeah, Jackson, Ori, Joey Kravchik, Jon Shreve all gave us some great performances on the stream. I know I'm leaving a lot of people out. We are going to cut back tomorrow morning into the Collins division where things are very much knotted at the top. Currently, the leaders, Wellington Jighere and Josh Castellano, 2 players we've seen a bunch of. 3 more games tomorrow, in fact, for those curious. There are 31 rounds in this event. Nigel clinching victory before the final day's games even need to be played. So yeah, that does it for an epic day 4 for us on stream. Rafi, any final thoughts about what we've just seen before we sign off for the day?
I don't have any thoughts that haven't already been said. It was just incredible stuff today by Nigel and by everyone. And I can't wait for what's in store for tomorrow in the Collins division.
Yeah, me too. So with that, that's going to do it for us today. 3 more games coming tomorrow to decide the Collins division. And that's going to be it for World Cup 2025. WoW division already decided. Nigel Richards, your champion, with a end game that will not ever be forgotten in Scrabble history for sure. So thanks everybody for watching. See you tomorrow morning for 3 more games from Collins, and signing off from the 2025 World Cup from St. Louis, Missouri, brought to you by WGPO and Coco.